Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candace Marie. Thanks for joining me. Happy Friday, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well. We are live on the channel on November 7th, 2025, doing live tarot readings. So it's good to be back, and I hope you guys are doing well. I'm excited to be reading cards for you guys this evening. Just as a reminder, if you guys are watching this on Saturday or Sunday, I am no longer live. Sorry I missed you. I hope to catch you guys next week. We'll be here next week for live astrology readings. We're going to be talking about the new moon in Scorpio. Subscribe to the channel while you're here. Make sure you click the bell button so you're getting alerts for all of my videos, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays. I do tarot and astrology readings on my channel, and I hope you guys enjoy. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and make sure you guys share out the feed so that way other people can get readings. And definitely come back and leave me some feedback on your readings and let me know what happens. So since this is the very first Friday for November, anybody who's a level 4 membership who would like to get their reading for the month, please let me know. If you guys didn't know, I have memberships on the channel. There's 4 different levels, but level 4 is going to get you a shout out. You support me. You're going to get, entry, or I guess viewage of the daily astrology that I do for the horoscopes for the 12 signs on my channel. And you're also going to get your reading once a month. So if you guys like my content, if you get readings regularly, do become a member. It helps the channel grow. And we're going to do shout outs because it's the beginning of the month. So it's crazy how fast this last month has gone. It's like wild. But those of you guys who are level 2 and 3 and 4, you guys get shout outs. So I want to say a big thank you for subscribing and also for being a channel member. You guys make it possible for me to keep doing this full time, to be putting out my long form content. I appreciate you guys so much. So people like Joan Berry, Vic, Taylor Small, Enchanted Crossroads, Miss Destruct, Patty L, the Zarani, the Contessa of the Divine, Donald, Rosie YouTube, Miga Rose, Smoky Brown Eyes, Justine Lemire, Jess, and we've got Mia, Sharon Grant, Baby Lee. We've got the Braveheart, Alicia, Aquanome Fire. There's more. Deanna, Nancy. We've got Melody, Melissa, Kathy, Ari, Lauren, Janie Doe, Bivoli, Katie, Ashley Johnson, Shay, Claire, Laverne, Darlene, Erica, Grow Up Together, Miss Taliba, and Susan Wexler. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. And if you guys want to get a reading and this is your first time, scan the QR code right up there. That's going to take you to my PayPal. We're going to be doing 1 and 3 card spreads. For a 1 card, 1 question, it's $20 donation. For a 3 card reading, it's going to be a $40 donation. And if you guys want to get multiples, you can. Some people do that. And we will be taking our level 4 people first. So is there anybody here? Looks like David's in the chat. What's up, David? And we've got Mr. Emperor Powers. I read your questions. We're probably going to end up taking you first because I don't see any level 4 members. So this is who I have in the queue. And you guys will hear me call out names. It's just me just letting you know that your reading is coming up next. I've got Emperor Power, Zach, Rosario, Matthew, Kayla, Sasha, Catherine, and Brenna. So we'll let you guys know how long we're going to keep the queue open. Once we're getting down to the wire, we will call last call. So if you hear that, that means that we're getting ready to wrap up readings for the evening. And if you want to get your reading, you want to get your reading in before we kind of close it up for the night. Just a few things about the channel. So we are seeing lots of growth in the channel. So thank you guys for your engagement, your likes, your comments. I really appreciate that. We also just recently dropped my brand new 2026 Astro calendars. So if you guys haven't seen the ones in recent years, I put out a printed calendar that's all 12 calendar months. We talk about a profile on the individual signs each month. We also talk about all the major ingresses, retrogrades, eclipses, when planets are changing signs. So it's really helpful. They're super beautiful, and it comes with ritual tips. And this year I put a QR code each month, and you can get a tarot card reading for your sign. So you're going to get an individual reading specific to you. We got a lot of feedback. People wanted to hear more tarot stuff. So you're going to see that on the calendar. So definitely check that out. Links in the description. We have a digital version as well. And I'm also really excited because this week I'm going to be selling my new tarot deck that I've been working on. So this is the deck that I'm going to be reading with tonight. It is called the Sword and the Rose Tarot. It comes with 78 cards, and you're going to get one face card of authenticity. We're doing a limited run of only 100 decks that we're printing. They're ready to go, and we're getting ready to put them on sale probably sometime between like Sunday and Friday. So I'm just trying to kind of pick the best time to do that. But if you guys are interested in this deck and you're wondering who made it, it was me. So I'm going to be using this during the readings this evening. So with that being said, we're going to start with Emperor Powers, and we're going to take a look at what his question is. Just to give you guys a rundown, Matt's doing a question. He has 3 questions on basically the same topic. He says, sorry for taking up 3 spots, but I've been crying every day and I need guidance. On Monday, my bosses told me I'm being moved from 4th grade to 2nd grade because the position became open unexpectedly and they need it filled. So they also told me some things they want me to work on. Mainly they think that I'm too buddy-buddy with the 4th grade and that they weren't given the same respect as other teachers. Okay, they weren't giving you the same respect. Also that you needed more organization and structure in the classroom. I know these are things I needed to work on, and they had not made me aware of concerns on their part to me. The next day I asked the principal what happened to get feedback the same day I got moved, or if I got fired from 4th grade, or both. She told me I didn't get fired from 4th grade, but they wanted me to have a fresh start with new students now that I know what to expect and really put up firmer boundaries early on. She said that way the kids don't get so comfortable with me. They feel like they can talk back to me, get quieter quicker when I tell them to. They also said that 4th grade was not where they needed to be academically, and the class is a major goal for the school because the last year the scores were low on large part to their teacher dying. Confidence is feeling low, worries are feeling high, and I know what I'm going to do to make changes I need, but I have these questions. One, was it more me getting fired from the 4th grade, or just so happened to be the day that they moved me, or a mix of both? 2, the behavior management, classroom management, is it going to be easier to manage in the 2nd grade? I'm coming from a very strict and orderly, so the bosses will never be able to say anything about it. 3, am I going to be fired or rehired, transferred, or anything like that at the end of the year, May 22nd-ish? Thanks. All right, well, that's a lot to be worrying about, so I feel you on that. I'm sure, as you know, that you're still feeling the impacts of the eclipses that are going through your 6th house, and the Mercury retrograde is going to be major changes in regards to your curriculum, what you're teaching, what obviously grade level you're going to be teaching in, and Saturn ruling your 10th house is talking a lot about changes that are going on, being made kind of behind the scenes. So I'm not surprised that there's some tweaks, but let's answer your questions one by one. So it looks like Emperor wants to know, was it more me getting fired from the 4th, or feedback that just so happened to be on the same day that you had to be moved, or was it a combination of the 2? So let's ask the cards, really, what was it? What was the reason behind that? Was it more performance, or did they need him to move? The cards that I got for you are the Ace of Swords, the Nine of Swords, and the 10 of Swords. A lot of swords, man. Honestly, I feel like whatever happened with there being a sudden opening, there was like a crisis in them needing to pivot and figure out where they're going to be putting somebody to fill the spot. That's literally what happened. I don't necessarily see this as being fired. I think if you had cards that were coming up with like Pentacles, it would kind of indicate that maybe they felt that your performance wasn't up to snuff, so they were like, okay, we're going to cut him back. But nevertheless, difficult, like, I guess, feedback to receive. The Swords deals with mental stress and communication issues. So it's interesting that it starts with an Ace and it completes with a 10 of Swords. The Ace of Swords is saying, hey, we got word, or maybe they decided to let somebody go, or there was some kind of change that happened in the position, and they literally did not have anybody that was familiar with the school or with the staff or with the kids that they could immediately move into that position. It's almost as if they didn't feel like they could pivot and put somebody in that place. I also think that the Ace of Swords is good because this represents a psychological or a communication clearing, and it's about kind of getting on the straight and narrow maybe hearing some feedback that would be beneficial, but I don't really feel like you were moved from the 4th grade to the 2nd grade and you were fired. The Ace of Swords is like, no, we just feel like you're going to be better in this position. The Nine of Wands coming up definitely indicates that there is a sense of feeling a little beat up and kind of wounded in the process emotionally, and also kind of taking it hard. But I do see this as a situation where if you weren't going to thrive in that particular like department, in that grade, then you've reached a point where the odds were already kind of stacked against you. When the 9 of Wands comes up, it means that you're feeling like you're getting bombarded and you're getting beat down and you're having to kind of forge ahead. When they were dealing with a grade level or potentially even like a class that was already struggling, so it was an uphill battle and you were put in a situation that was already kind of having the odds working against them. Perhaps maybe there is a real focus on this because they need to see the students performing better. And so I feel like, you know, you being in a position where you're more friendly, maybe you're a little bit more reasonable with the kids, maybe they feel like, you know, the kids are a little bit more comfortable there. It's not going to create an environment where the kids are having this kind of rule, you know, set, strict kind of environment where they're having to be on top of things. And they really need to make sure that this particular grade is going to be doing better. So going into it, some of the things were already kind of falling apart prior to you getting there. So now it's almost like triage where they're getting in going, okay, we need to make sure that this is going to be performing better. And I think that this year, whether you came in mid-year or whatever happened, they were already seeing a bit of a decline. So they don't want to see this continue. So I don't really feel like this is totally on you. It's more a situation that you walked into, you were trying to manage, and they feel like they needed to kind of replace that position ASAP. And I think that was the 2nd grade. So whatever was going on in like the 2nd grade teachers or somebody suddenly left, they figured like, you know what, this guy is, you know, already kind of having, you know, some trouble, or he's struggling with dealing with these students. We're going to put him in a different grade. We're going to move somebody else in here. And it looks like another person is going to be taking on the weight of that. So I don't know if they're bringing a teacher back or if they're bringing somebody in from an upper grade, but they have somebody that they're choosing to put in there. I feel like regardless of what teacher they have, for the rest of the year, it's still going to be quite a challenge for that 4th grade classroom. So it's almost good in a way that you're getting out right at the very end, because I feel like had you stayed there, it would not necessarily have been a very good outcome. The 10 of Swords is saying that now it's like a conclusion and a completion. So on one hand, you know, yes, that phase has ended for you. You're kind of upset about it, or you're feeling as if, you know, you're the failure. But like I said, there were problems before you got there. Had you stayed in that particular grade level and department and things would have continued to decline, I feel like the 10 of Swords is saying it definitely would have put you on the chopping block, and it would have put you in a position where potentially, even though it wasn't totally your fault, you may not necessarily have had job security coming out of that. So the fact that you actually pivoted and you segue, I think is actually kind of like the saving grace, because that was like a train that was, you know, just inevitably going to, you know, kind of blow up. So I don't think you were fired. I think the 10 of Swords is saying that was a dead end, even though it's kind of a hard pill to swallow some of the feedback you got. I don't feel like it's entirely fair to put it all on you. I think it was just a matter of circumstance where they needed to fill somebody in a lower grade, and they also were looking for whoever was newest or kind of lowest on the totem pole. And they are going to put somebody in there who they feel like is just going to be a bit of like a, ball buster, so that way they can get the improvement that they need grade-wise. Now, when it comes to your second question, which was, is the behavior management, classroom management going to be easier to manage for 2nd grade? I'm comfortable being very strict and orderly, so the bosses will never have to be able to say anything about it. So just as a reminder, okay, throughout this Mercury retrograde, you're going to see Mercury, which rules your communication style and also your kind of job and your day-to-day, retrograde back into Scorpio. So it does represent, there is a bit of a strategy. There is a huge shift in how you're approaching work and communication psychologically. Yes, it can kind of make you feel a little anxious and emotional and vulnerable, but here's the silver lining. As Mercury goes through Scorpio, it's going to trine Saturn in your 12th house. So that means you're taking some of the feedback that you're getting. You're also aware that, you know, eyes are on you or things have changed, and you're shifting the way that you're approaching communication. I also feel like part of the themes going into December as planets go through Sagittarius, it's going to square stuff that's going to be in Virgo. So you're going to see the squares to the north and the south node. So communication, being on time, being orderly is going to be a huge focus for you, but I'm pretty confident that between the new moon in Scorpio and the new moon in Sagittarius, you're going to see some positive changes. So let's see if you going in this direction when it comes to behavioral management is going to be beneficial in the long term. I get the Moon card, I get the Nine of Swords, and I get the Knight of Swords. So you're going through it, dude. I mean, you're pulling like, you know, the Eight of Swords, Nine of Swords, Ten of Swords. I mean, you know, the Moon card is saying that right now you're kind of approaching things like, oh my God, what's going to happen, worst case scenario. And you have to be careful with the Moon card because you can have a tendency to kind of like spiral out a little bit and assume that things are going to happen that may not potentially happen. And this is about keeping your cool and emotionally staying really grounded. I also feel like this can be indicating that the new moons and the full moons are what you're really going to pay attention to. Particularly, I would say the new moons, the new moon in Scorpio, the new moon in Sagittarius, and you're going to have a whole flood of planets that are going to be moving through Capricorn as you go into the new year, which is really great for getting things in order, feeling like you're the master of what you're doing, feeling like you're a leader, feeling like you're being respected more. And I think with that Nine of Swords coming up in the right now position, you know, all you can do is focus on making change moving forward. When this card comes up, it talks about lost sleep, you know, worrying, being up all night, being anxious, and being in a situation where you're like, oh my God, why is this happening to me? What am I going to do? And I would say you don't want to be in that, because if you allow yourself to go into that doom spiral, it's going to knock your confidence, and it's also going to set you back where you're not getting rest and you're not able to be totally focused on what actions you do need to take. I like the fact that the Knight of Swords is coming up, because this does kind of indicate that you're taking action and you're being more direct when it comes to communication. But just a bit of advice about the Knight of Swords. This can be somebody who is a little bit more direct and assertive, but it can also be in a way that's coming across like heavy-handed. Sometimes with the Knight of Swords, it can mean that, you're, sometimes coming across like you're shouting at people. I'm not saying that that's your demeanor, but you have to be mindful of that. It also can mean that there is a quickening to your lesson plan or the way that you're teaching or the way that you're communicating. I would use this energy to give tasks, right? So like the Knights like to go and, feel inspired by what they're doing. So rather than being like the strict, mean teacher, it can be like, hey, you guys need to be in your seats. It needs to be at this time. You need to make sure you're turning in your homework on time. It needs to be here. These are the actions that you want. So you're inspiring the kids to learn how to be receptive of when they're actually given some kind of direction. So you're getting them into the routine. And if kids are following your orders, there's not really going to be any need for you to be heavy-handed or to be like that strict kind of scary teacher. So it's also about inspiring them to want to be good on their own. And you're doing that through driving, incentive. So, okay, if you guys, do X, Y, and Z, and if the class does so well, or if you guys are able to complete this project within a certain amount of time, great, you're going to be rewarded. So it's less about repercussions. It's more about inspiring them to want to be good, to want to communicate well, to want to be showing up and doing things on time. And I do think that this is a card that does remind you that you need to be still careful of how you're communicating, because I think it could be going from one end of the spectrum to the other, and it can almost be like emotional whiplash for you, where I know you want to show them that you can be a little bit more strict and you can be organized, but don't overdo it. I also feel like any communication that you're having with the school or with the administration, for the elementary school, it's important to take some of the feedback that they gave you and really show them through your actions what changes you're making. Now, you can only do so much, right? You can change the way you're communicating, you can change your organization, you can change your lesson plans, but really the kids' behavior and their ability to show respect and their ability to get things done is what's going to really show that you're doing what they need you to do. So I think I would be more focused on how you can ensure that the kids are going to be actually behaving and that they're going to be responding well to whatever you're laying down. Don't be so consumed with how you sound or how you're coming across. Let the kids' behavior speak for themselves, because this is talking about younger people. Also, when you're going back and forth and talking to them again, this can be talking about some anxiety revolving around, whether or not there's going to be another reevaluation, whether or not they're going to be pulling you aside and giving you feedback again. I don't see that. I feel like if you let your actions speak for themselves, and also if you are talking to them or if they do approach you again, don't be defensive, right? Because the Knight of Swords can be defensive. It's about hearing what they have to say and be like, look, I hear you, I got that. and then respond with being like, these are the steps that I'm taking, these are the actions, or this is kind of the, you know, kind of approach that I'm taking when it comes to the classroom. So I think it'll be fine, because this does mean that you're going to be standing up for yourself. But whenever you're dealing with communications, just watch for feeling defensive, because I feel like that can be coming from a place of being scared and not knowing about the future, the moon. It can also be talking about you being kind of stressed and worried, and maybe feeling like there's some lost sleep and not knowing how to kind of handle or manage it. All right, so let's look at the third question that you have. And the third was, am I going to be fired, not rehired, transferred, or anything like that at the end of the school year? So let's just look. It doesn't look like you're going to be told to leave, whether you're transferred or you're fired. Does it look like at the end of the school year in May of 2026, is that likely to happen? All right, so let's see what we can tell Mr. Emperor. All right, so these are the cards that I get for you. I get the Judgment card, I get the King of Coins, and I get the Justice card. So to be honest with you, no, I don't see that. I see more of a situation where, and this makes sense with your astrology, you may be contemplating or deciding whether or not this is going to be a place that you're going to want to stay. I can tell you that even though you feel a little rattled, I think you know that this place is light years ahead of where you were working. I also think that the Judgment card is going to be talking about you taking a look at the situation and you having to decide whether or not this is something that's going to be a fit for you. I do think that, you know, as a Aries rising, you have to watch in February when you have the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, because Saturn rules your career, Neptune is what you don't necessarily see or perceive. And that conjunction in February can represent something about your career goals changing. But it would be up to you to decide. And so it's interesting that the Judgment card comes up, because it is kind of insinuating that there will come a time, especially in the spring, where you're going to have to decide whether or not you want to stay or go. I don't see that necessarily being them, okay? And the King of Coins really solidifies the fact that you're going to stay at the school, you're still going to be employed, you're still going to have a job. I don't see you going anywhere. If anything, there's a progression that's kind of happened in these cards, where you go from scared and concerned to, okay, well, I'm in my head, but, you know, I'm going to kind of, you know, take hold of the situation, and I'm going to have a different direction in how I'm communicating and teaching, to now it's like, okay, you know, as we get into 2026, you're going to have more of a say in whether or not you stay or go. The King of Coins makes me feel like they're going to see you as somebody who is really matured and grown, and somebody who's valuable and solid, that they're not going to want to leave. Or have leave. And this is also indicating that, you know, for you, there is a lot of job security with the King of Coins. This is somebody who they feel like is up to task, they're competent, you know, they're also confident, and they're going to see them as somebody who's a very valuable asset at the school. Now, the Justice card is interesting, because the Judgment is like, there is going to be a definitive decision. The Justice card is going to be about weighing the options. I do feel like this is going to be about them being a little bit more lenient in where you ultimately end up going next year in terms of departments. Like, I don't necessarily think that you have to stay in the second grade. They may talk to you and ask you about how you're feeling with where you've been teaching and where you're working, and they may try to reevaluate and decide if it would be better for you to go into a different, you know, kind of grade. But they'll work with you. It's not going to be a situation like just recently where they said, okay, we need you in second grade, you're out, go. It's not going to be like that. That was kind of like the rug getting pulled. What's likely to happen is you're going to see that they're going to do another review. They're going to talk to you about, you know, whether or not you're happy with where you are, you know, and potentially whether or not you could move to another grade. But I don't see you getting fired. I don't see you having to leave. I don't see you being unemployed. If anything, I think this is you giving it a shot and giving it your all to see how you can make some changes when it comes to performance and also dealing with the kids. They'll see you as somebody who's really grown and very valuable, and they'll be willing to work with you and talk to you about what you want and potentially where you could be a good fit. With that being said, the astrology, you know, really is something that's quite significant. I mean, eclipses that you're going to be seeing in Aquarius starting in February is about working with a new group of people. So you're going to be working with new kids. It's also going to be about how you're getting along and managing and kind of mixing and mingling with people at work. So a lot of it's going to be the social connection and whether or not you're kind of relatable and getting along well with staff. I think the more that you're kind of leaning into that and being involved in some of the school activities and getting to know this new bunch that's going to be coming in, obviously, as you're going into next year, is going to be rather important. You'll want to watch more like the Saturn-Mars conjunctions, I think like in April, where there could potentially be that judgment period coming up where you're like, do I want to be here? Is this what I want? But I don't really see it necessarily being their decision. I think you're solid when it comes to employment at this location. I hope that that's helpful in giving you some insight. I hope that that can help you get some rest and not be too worried or not be too concerned. And I hope that this is gonna hopefully inspire you to kind of take some different directions with how you're gonna be managing this position. And I'm confident that you can do it. All right, what's up, Lariso? I got you. I'll check you in just a second. What's up, Tink Judy? Hey, Rocio. You're very welcome. All right, so we've got Zach, Rosario, and Matt V. You guys are all next in the queue. All right, and there are definitely some people who popped in here, so let me see who else we've got. Brenna, Julie, Estrella, Lo, Venus and Leo, Rocio, am I saying that right? And Corey, I've got all of you guys, so if you hear your name, I've got you. What's up, Zach? Zach says, hey, Candace, what is the breakthrough I need to become a profitable day trader? I have a plan and parameters to protect my capital. I just want to know what is between me and the results I'm looking for. I am a Leo sun, Cancer rising, and Gemini moon. Thank you so much. All right. Interesting time being a Cancer rising, right? Because the Mercury retrograde starting in your 6th house. So it's about making changes and how you can kind of perceive patterns and things that are going on with your work and changing direction with that. Simultaneously, you're going to see that the retrograde is going to be going back into your 5th house, which is about taking chances, risks, trading. Something else to think about as a Cancer rising is that you are going to be experiencing Saturn and Neptune going into your 10th house next year. So it's big career changes on the horizon for you, for sure. Be very careful with the market with Mercury retrogrades that you're having in your 6th house over the next month, okay? Especially because that retrograde is going to trine Saturn, so it can be about, sure, protecting your assets, but also digging into savings and being mindful of expenses. But let's ask the cards, what is the breakthrough that you need to become a profitable day trader? It's good to hear that you have a plan and parameters. I like that. All right, is this going to be the card of the evening? We have the Judgment card again. Wow, and we have the Lovers card and we have the Justice card. So these are all 3 major arcana cards, all right, which basically is like the tarot's way of like screaming at you saying, hey, there's some really big energies that are coming up here. Judgment coming up right now means you've already made the commitment where you're like, this is it. This is what I'm doing. This is the plan. Okay. It almost feels like there's been a series of events or things that have kind of transpired, putting you in this situation where you feel like you have to do this. It's either this or bust. And I don't know if it's because you don't want to do a different type of work or you're segueing out of a different type of work, or obviously, you know, having had all kinds of retrogrades and other things in your money house in this last year, it's really probably inspired you to go and educate yourself and learn a lot more about how to make a living, okay? So if you've been learning, if you've been studying, if you've been, you know, training and teaching yourself how to read the markets, yeah, good on you. That's a good move. I do think the Judgment card is also about using fair judgment and knowing when to not necessarily take risks and when to play it safe and be cautious. So that way you can kind of like protect your, you know, assets or protect the money that you are putting up and starting small. But when the Judgment card comes up, it's saying, okay, now you're all in. It's like now or never, right? Or all or nothing. And I would say be careful, because the Judgment card coming up with the Lovers card is saying, on one hand, it could also be your love for trading or your love for learning to recognize the patterns or the opportunity to take chances. Obviously, the Lovers card can talk about temptation and risk. It's also about diversification. So, you know, this is associated with Gemini. It can be about this and that. It can indicate that you're not just somebody who is necessarily day trading on one particular platform or maybe with one particular stock, that you're diversifying what you're going to be investing in. So you need to have options. I also like the energy of the Lovers card because it means that you could go one way or the other. So you may not be somebody who's necessarily buying and holding. Obviously, if you're a day trader, you're regularly trading.
But this could be somebody who's like, yeah, I'm going to swing trade. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to ride it up, and then I'm going to sell it. I'm going to take profits, and then I'm going to watch it come down. And you're going to be playing both sides of the trade. And so I think a lot of this is going to be about pattern recognition, obviously, learning how to see some of the patterns that are going on in the markets and whether or not things are going more bearish or if they're going to be more bullish, and really riding the wave of some of those trades so that way you can play it on both sides rather than waiting longer periods to see things run up or break down. This is also about the love of the game, right? The lovers is like, I really love this, or I'm getting involved in things, or I'm trading things that I'm really passionate about, or this can be very information based and that you're getting a lot of information about stuff and you're doing your research on ultimately what you're going to be trading. Now, it may mean that there is going to be some kind of a breakthrough that's going to be happening for you when it comes to Gemini transits. So you're going to see with the Lovers card, when planets are going through Gemini in like May and June of 2026, it could also be referencing the full moon in Gemini, which is going to be taking place in Sagittarius season. These are going to be times that you're going to want to watch. And I do think with the Justice card coming up, this is also about, balance in relationships. And so I don't really think that you're in a position right now, at least with some of your transits, that I would put myself out there and go, oh, I'm giving financial advice or investing advice, or I'm going to be, representing clients. No, we don't want to do that. Saturn and Neptune going into your 10th house is going to be more, I'm doing it for me, I'm forging my own way. And also it could be about the relationships that you have within a community. Both of these cards represent Gemini and Libra. So communication, connection, information, partnership, balance, and kind of weighing the odds and kind of going back and forth, and also engaging socially with other people. So a lot of this can mean that you're, getting to be a part of a community online, and you're doing research on trading, and you're getting information and things that are going to be influencing your trades. And you're also going to be talking to a lot of people and getting feedback and continuing to learn. This can also mean with the Justice card that it is going to be a fine balance. Like, it almost looks like if you're going at this and you're trying to make this your everyday thing, you want to be more cautious and conservative, at least until we're getting to, next year. It looks like June through about September of 2026 is when you're really going to see the breakthrough. And I'm assuming if your whole goal is to not just make it your day-to-day thing, but to generate more cash, right? You're saving more money. So that way, maybe you're doing smaller trades, but you're taking some of that, you're setting it aside, and you're going to be reinvesting and waiting until you can buy more of a stock, or maybe you can, have a bigger trade or something like that as you're getting into next year. He said, I've been learning to do this with my twin sister. We've partnered up and we want to make a career out of this. I love that the Lovers card represents Gemini, and Gemini is the twins. So perhaps that's another way of looking at it, that, the Judgment card is like, we're all in, I'm doing this with a partnership. I've got this other, person, my sister, who I'm doing this with. And, there is like this team effort, and we're focusing on being able to support each other through the process. And so I like that, because whether it's your sister or whether it's going to be community driven, you're not going to be alone in this. You're going to have feedback, you're going to have support. And I think that can be really beneficial for you, right? Like, being somebody who is a Cancer rising, this year, you can be a little too idealistic and optimistic about things. That can happen with Jupiter being in your first house. However, knowing that you're going to have Jupiter and Saturn in a trine, especially throughout this next month, means that you're going to have a lot of support that's going to be coming from another person who can kind of, maybe help you tone down a little bit, or be a little bit more conservative or cautious, or seeing the blind spots if you're not necessarily seeing them. So I think that really having partnership throughout this process is going to be really beneficial. I also think that I would pay attention to the timeline that I kind of gave you. I would also really recognize that the Justice card can also be saying that it's not just about making all the money and scoring all the cash. Sometimes it's about being like, okay, there's going to be some trades that are going to break even, but at least you're not losing something. And there's going to also be some situations where you're going to have to really weigh out your options and decide whether or not you're willing to take a risk. And maybe getting feedback from your sister, or having community that you can get feedback from, where you can be talking about some of the market trends and what you're kind of feeling, and gaining more confidence when it comes to making these decisions. You're going to be able to become a more competent, and I think also a confident, trader. So hopefully that's helpful for you. It looks like you already made up your mind. I don't really feel like there's anything that's kind of holding you back, but definitely be mindful of timing in the next month, especially with that retrograde in your 5th house. Good luck. You're welcome. We have got Rosario, Matthew V, and then Kayla. What's up, Rosario? Cancer rising, Pisces sun. All right. Should I take a break from my old friends, or should I move on, or should I stay? They did nothing wrong. I'm just not feeling them anymore. I don't know how to explain it, and I don't know how to explain this to them. Okay, interesting. So does she stay with the friends, take a break? Does she let them go? What does she do? I think it's like a Cancer rising, like once again, another situation. A lot of the transits that are going to be happening for you are in your 5th house. So it's a lot of, how do I feel joy? What's going to make me happy? Who am I going to be happiest with? And the 5th house is yourself, your hobbies, your own joy, your own self-love. There's some tension going on right now because you're going to see Mercury retrograde in opposition to Uranus in your friendship zone. You're going to see Venus coming into opposition, with your friendship zone. You're going to see a new moon in Scorpio in opposition to Uranus in your friendship zone. And Uranus is going to be there for a couple months now. So it's kind of wrapping up some changes that are happening in the friendship department. So, tarot aside, look towards the new moon in Scorpio. There's going to be something that's going to come up for you where you're going to be like, what makes me happy? It doesn't necessarily align with what they want to do or, the types of things that they're into. And the card that I got for you is the Page of Swords, which is very interesting because, this means that you're already taking the necessary steps now. A page is kind of the first beginning steps, or you're just kind of getting into the swing of something, or maybe you're listening to your gut and your gut's telling you, like, I just don't want to talk to him. And this is about keeping an open mind, being flexible, right? Air signs are about communication, connection, understanding. And I almost wonder if it's going to be a situation where you're going to willingly take a step back and take a break. And this is going to be like a reset for you, where you're going to reevaluate and see how you're feeling when you're not going back and forth, seeing them or communicating with them. I also have a feeling that it's going to give you time to really reevaluate what's going to make you happy and whether or not there could be other hobbies or other things that you could get interested in. And you're probably going to be taking note of who notices your lack of involvement. Because a page can be kind of dangerous in a sense where they come in and they come out swinging. So if you were to go to your friends and say, hey, I'm not feeling it anymore, I don't want to be friends anymore, that's, I think, a lower kind of example of the Page of Swords, where we're just saying things that we potentially can't take back. And, doing that in this next month, it could be creating a lot of friction with friends. The way to navigate this is to go, okay, I'm getting the message, something's off with my friends, I'm going to take a step back. I don't need to end a friendship. I don't necessarily need to force myself to be places or be engaging with people that I'm not interested in either. Let me take a break for a couple of weeks and see what happens. Does my joy come back? Do I have new friends that come in? Do I meet somebody new? Do I notice that there are certain friends that are reaching out to me? And then you go from there. Because there's going to be some static between what you want versus what other people want. And I feel like if push comes to shove, and if you do get to the end of this period, as you're getting into, end of November and December, and you're like, yeah, this is just not in alignment, then you can make that decision. But usually a Page of Swords represents just a couple of weeks of trying a different communication strategy. And I would be throwing myself into 5th house things, creativity, crafting, dance, dating, any of these things that are going to be kind of filling your cup. And maybe, in the process of being so consumed with making changes and doing things that make you happy, your friends are going to notice your absence. They're going to be like, where'd she go? Where are they? And they're going to try to connect with you, and you're going to see who's kind of left standing. But change the way that you're communicating. Don't dip out. Don't cut anybody off. Not yet. Just take a little bit of time to yourself and see who comes back. Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, we got Matthew V, Kayla, and then Sasha. And if you guys are just tuning in, you want to get a reading, scan the QR code right up there. If you want to get in the queue, put your question in the memo box for me, and I'll call your name when you guys are up. What's up, Matt? All right, Matt V says, hey, Candace, I'm writing from California because I'm visiting my friend who lives in LA. This is the second time I've come out to visit her, and I really enjoy it. Anything I can expect for the remainder of the trip? I already met a cute surfer guy, so is there anything there too? All right, let's take a look. So what can Matthew expect for the remainder of the trip? Is there any romantic connections or anything there? What does he need to be aware of while he's in California? All right. The cards that you get are the Hanged Man, the Page of Swords. There it is again. And the Hermit card. So that's very interesting because I feel like the Hermit card and the the Hangman are kind of similar in a way, right? So like Pisces and Virgo, they're similar, but they're different. I kind of get the impression that with the Hangman coming up, this means that you're in a situation where you're like, okay, I'm not going to have any expectations, or I'm not going to be attached to anything that happens here. I'm not going to feel like I need to do anything other than just vibe, which is probably a great place to be doing that if you're in Los Angeles. I do think that the Hangman is also talking about this being a period of not feeling like you need to make anything happen, whether this is a relationship, if this is going to be, you know, future plans. It's kind of like playing it by ear and listening to your gut and your intuition while you're there. And it can be also about feeling like you can just rest and relax. Obviously, the Hangman has associations with Pisces. So being by the beach, being by water, you know, being where there's good, you know, music or there's good kind of art scene can also be really positive for you, and it can help make some major changes and transformations in how you see yourself and how you see the world. So it's about kind of soaking it all in and having no real expectations or attachment to anything and being in the moment. I do think the Page of Swords is interesting because it does seem like there's going to be a lot of buzz and communication and connection with people and opportunities to actually connect with people that would either invite you to come back out or somebody who you would stay in communication and connection with. And I don't think it's your friend. So it can be men who can be air signs, obviously Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius type of energy. It can also be inspiring you to be thinking about coming out there more, visiting more often, or whether or not you would consider like either visiting in the future, or if you would want to consider like, you know, like going there, because the Page of Swords says, I want to explore, I want to learn all the things, I want to connect to all the people. And it's also really exciting because it's a very different kind of culture, and it can be have you engaging with people who kind of see the world very differently. So there's a lot to learn while you're there. Pages are also all about exploring. So it's about exploring places and going and seeing, you know, bookshops and maybe coffee shops and other things that are going to be more social. And the possibility that through this experience, not only do you feel, I think, more rested or a little bit better, well-traveled, a little bit more culture, but also you're leaving being like, wow, I have more of an open mind and like I see things from a different perspective. Now, the Hermit card is also a card that's about turning within. So I don't really feel like this is a trip where you have to have a, everything planned out. You don't necessarily have to have everything kind of booked and set up. You're just kind of like going with the flow. And the Hermit card talks about really enjoying traveling by yourself. So I know that you said you went there to visit somebody, but this could also be about getting time alone outside of, you know, having an itinerary. So I don't know how long you're going to be there for, but if you have the time to go and explore on your own, this could be like renting a bike or a scooter or going for a walk. This could also mean that, you know, you're wanting to go and spend some time on the beach or be in nature, or you're wanting to check out a park or something where there's going to be like outdoor festivities where you can kind of take it all in. And a lot of this is about the balance. It's interesting, like the Virgo Pisces axis. So if you, I don't remember what your rising sign is, but look at where Virgo and Pisces is in your chart. Because clearly both of these are coming up, and it's saying that you're kind of balancing out these two opposing energies, and you're finding a way through movement and communication to find better mind, body, spirit balance. And so you're doing that while you're traveling, and maybe it's just the act of traveling and being in a different place, or maybe it's about really enjoying this experience and kind of being alone. But I do feel like the Hermit card is giving you, I think, a sense of coming back home and feeling like, wow, that was like a trip that really changed my perspective, or it moved me, or it made me feel like I had some things that, you know, in terms of my values were out of order, and now I'm kind of shifting things. And like, I guess it's safe to say, like a lot of people who are not from California, you go to California and you kind of see like the food and the culture and everything's slower there, and everybody just kind of like likes to vibe out. That you're going to come back and you're going to want to implement, or I think bring some of that back with you, and probably feeling inspired to kind of go back and return and visit. Definitely staying in contact with somebody. So contact information, exchanging information with somebody seems significant. Even if you feel like it's just kind of like a fleeting thing in the moment, it's possible that when you leave, there is still going to be a connection that you're going to have with another person. So hopefully that's helpful for you. I hope you enjoy. What part of LA are you visiting and staying in? We've got Kayla, and then Sasha and Catherine. What's up, Kayla? Kayla says, I'm an Aries sun, Leo moon, Cap rising, and I'm looking for guidance on a connection that ended about a month ago with D. Haven't spoken to him since we ended with an argument, and I'm wondering how he's feeling or what the future looks like. Love you to pieces. She says, I feel so conflicted about my situation with D. It's like I know what I need to do, but I'm pulled to do the opposite. I can't tell what's his energy and what's mine. Thanks, Robbie. So here's the deal. Capricorn rising. Having Jupiter that's getting ready to go retrograde in your 7th house of relationships, okay? So Uranus is back in your 5th. It's kind of changing things up relationship-wise. Jupiter and Saturn are going to trine this month, and I think that's really beneficial because having, obviously, you know, Saturn in your 3rd house is going to be confusing communication and not knowing what to say or how to say it. And that retrograde that's going through Scorpio is giving you the opportunity to get feedback from friends, to reevaluate your goals, to try to see whether or not you could still be friends or friendly. So I think that the next couple of weeks is going to be really good for Capricorns to focus on listening to their inner voice. So when you say, I know what I'm supposed to do, but I just can't figure out what's him and what's me, you got to listen to your gut and know that there are opportunities for you to communicate, but it's about having better boundaries in how you're communicating with these people, because once Jupiter goes retrograde next week, they're going to be in their feelings. They're not going to be so communicative, you know, and you're going to see more kind of, you know, conclusions with relationships, I think, coming up closer to the beginning of the year when you have that full moon in your 7th house. So let's ask the cards. They haven't spoken. Things ended with an argument. How's he feeling, or what does the future look like? Is there a connection there in the future? All right. I mean, I feel like this is a card that's like, if he comes back, he comes back, but if he doesn't, you're not necessarily waiting. You know what I mean? 3 of Wands, 2 of Wands. So this is kind of you going, all right, on one hand, I could reach out to him. On the other hand, you know, I could just keep full steam ahead and be open and optimistic about the future. In theory, according to the 2 of you, the 2 of Wands is saying there's still a connection there, there's still a possibility and a potential, and the door is actually open. Even if you guys haven't left things on, you know, good, I guess, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like it wasn't left in a good standing, you'll have the opportunity to connect. But I think this is about you moving forward and being like, if he does, he does, but I'm not reaching out to him. And with the retrograde, somebody can come back. And somebody can come back. It doesn't have to be the person that you're referencing that's D. It could be anybody. But 2 of Wands is really encouraging you to step forward and start making plans whether or not they return. And also maybe it's going to be about taking the necessary actions to energetically cut cords, or maybe it's going to be about you going like, okay, universe, send me who's ever supposed to be, you know, coming into my life, who I'm supposed to be with, send me a sign. Because this is about you really approaching this in a way where you're letting your intuition or the universe intervene, but it's not about you taking the action, reaching out and communicating with him. It's not about that. She goes, that's kind of where I'm at currently. If he comes back, great. If not, oh well. Well, and the other thing is that the 2 of Wands is also saying that by keeping the door open, you're energetically saying, I'm open to reconnecting. There's still feelings there. I want to connect with you. But by the same token, you have to meet me halfway. So I don't really see this as a situation where you guys are having like a Mexican standoff where who's going to call who first. Like the connection is still there. And it can mean that you're also feeling into that with the 2 of Wands going, all right, I'm optimistic that inevitably there is going to be a reconnection and hopefully it's going to be better timing for the both of us. And I'm going to keep my life moving forward because I know that something was not meshing when we were together. So clearly we have something that we have to work out while we're separate. And if I stay on the path of bettering myself and I leave that door open, he's going to come back around. You really need to look at what's going on with the ruler of your 7th house. So obviously, you know, if you're a Cap rising, what transits are going on with your moon, right? And then also watch the full moon that's going to be happening in your 7th house around early January. That's when you're going to see a huge change. And I think a lot of Capricorns and Capricorn risings, honestly, are going to find with that full moon that because they're really focusing on themselves, especially come the beginning of the year, it's almost going to act like a magnet. It's going to zoop, it's going to bring somebody right in. So keep things moving, stay open-minded. I do think there's a possibility, likely within the 2 months, of there being like some kind of reconnection. But I think that it's about sending that message energetically, not necessarily reaching out. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Kayla. All right, we've got Sasha and then Catherine and Brenna. What's up, Sasha? Sasha says, hey, Candace, I need a general love reading. I am a Pisces sun, Cancer moon, Pisces rising. Whoa, water. But I feel like it feels like I'm being observed, but I don't know if it's an ex's energy or someone new or maybe a friend. Maybe I'm just crazy. You're welcome. You're not crazy. I think that honestly, the astrology for Pisces risings right now is pretty good in the love department. You guys just don't see it. And the reason being is, you know, Jupiter traditionally rules your chart. And now it's moving through the 5th house of romance. So when Jupiter goes through the 5th house, love can hit. Yes, it can be people from the past because Cancer can deal with the past. It's also about self-love, creativity, self-expression. And Jupiter and Saturn are in a trine right now. So Mercury rules your 7th house. You've had eclipses there over the last couple months. We saw them in September, which was opposing Saturn and Neptune in your sign. So that feeling of, ooh, I'm being watched or somebody's checking in on me, it checks out with your astrology, like very much so. So let's ask the cards and let's see, is somebody keeping an eye on Sasha? You know, can we get an idea of if somebody is it friendly or is it like ex related or is she just crazy? Her words, not mine. All right, let's ask the cards what we need to know about this vibe. All right, the cards that you get are the Hierophant, the Queen of Cups, and the Four of Wands. Very interesting. Were you involved with like a Taurus? Was there a Taurus that you were involved with in the past? That's the card for the Hierophant. That's why I'm wondering, because that could be specifically the sign. But the Hierophant and the Queen of Cups is usually a combination that talks about somebody getting things in order, okay? And that could mean emotionally, you're being a little bit more conservative or you're a little bit more protective. Maybe it means that things have kind of shifted for you where you're like, you know what? I'm not really focusing on relationships right now. I'm focusing more on me. This could also mean that with the Hierophant, there is a sense of you trying to walk the straight and narrow right now in the dating world and really holding yourself to a standard where you're like, if it's not 100%, I'm not engaging. It can also mean that there is a sense of you really prioritizing having very high standards. And that's not a bad thing. Having high standards right now with Saturn and Neptune in your sign is good. Having low expectations, I think, is where you want to be. Let's see what she said. So she said, I've been involved with a Scorpio, Virgo, and a Libra in recent years. So this is more like an earth sign. Okay, so that's what this is. If anybody's checking in with you, I think that it's more somebody who's interested, that's new, that's coming in. I don't think it's the past. Even in spite of the astrology, right? The Mercury retrograde, obviously for you, is tied to your 7th house. So it can mean that, you know, Mercury is retrograding from your 10th house to your 9th house. Somebody is checking in on you from afar. Somebody's admiring you. But I actually think it's somebody who's new. I think it's somebody who's kind of curious about you. It could be a Taurus or it could be somebody who's born in like April, May. But I think that with the Queen of Cups coming up and the Four of Wands, these are great cards. Usually when you see the Four of Wands coming up with the Hierophant, it can be an indication that the energy is shifting in your love life where it's going into a direction where you're bringing in a partner that's going to be more like marriage material, literally. So like husband material. Maybe that means that, you know, you're saying to yourself, I know what I want. I'm not willing to kind of settle. And I'm going to be more self-focused until the right person comes in. And so that will pay off for you. That energy is working because it looks like with that emotional alignment, commitment to yourself, listening to your intuition, because the Queen of Cups is somebody who's very intuitive. The Four of Wands is the outcome card. So I think there is somebody who you have either connected with or you've met in a group setting or somebody who is like a friend of a friend. And so this could be obviously on social media, it could be on Facebook, Instagram, whatever. Other people who you're tied to, they're interested in you. And it also looks like there is a possibility in the future, because the Four of Wands is coming up, that there's going to be a connection with this person. Like somebody's going to be somewhere where you know a friend of a friend of a friend, and then they're going to be like, oh, hey, we've met before. And then you're going to realize like, oh my God, is this the person who's been like trying to kind of find ways to kind of connect with me or be set up with me? The Queen of Cups is also somebody who's beautiful. I mean, this is somebody who's youthful and attractive and bubbly and sweet and innocent, and somebody sees that. And like they saw you in a moment where you weren't aware that you were being watched or that you were being admired. So they're almost trying to be like, okay, so like, who does she know? Or like, is she going to be there? Or is there, can you introduce me to her? Because of some social gathering. Let's look at what she said. She goes, I had a one-night stand with a Taurus on my birthday this year. One-night stand. Well, I mean, if it's not a Taurus, it's going to be somebody who's going to be coming in that's going to have that energy in the future. But it's somebody who you've either already met or somebody who you've had some kind of an exchange with very briefly, and they're still interested in reconnecting with you. But it's nothing negative. There's nothing here that makes me get like the heebie-jeebies. I feel like it's somebody who is probably being very cautious and strategic and how they're thinking about connecting with you and wanting to know more about you. So it's not like creepy and stalkerish. And it's very likely that you will have some kind of confirmation, at least sometime by the spring, where it's like, oh yeah, I saw you were like at some place with so-and-so. And you're going to go, oh my God, it could be them. But I don't get the vibe that it's anything negative. So let me know what happens, and definitely stay on the lookout when it comes to like social gatherings, parties, and stuff like that, because it does look like that the romance is about to change for you. Good luck. All right, we have got Catherine, and then Brenna, and then Julie. You're welcome. What's up, Catherine? She goes, I am a Scorpio rising, Libra sun, Cancer moon. 3-card reading. I'm looking for any insight or guidance that stands out, please. What's up, Catherine? Wanted to add that I'm working through a breakup and randomly met someone at work who's piqued my interest, but I don't know if I have regular access to. Does it feel mutual? All right, let's take a look. So obviously as a Scorpio rising, life's pretty colorful now that Uranus is back in Taurus. So those kind of definitive turning points in relationships make sense, And the Mercury retrograde is just trying to go through your like period of change. And then it's like those oppositions that you're going to see to Uranus is unexpected changes and like people kind of popping into your life while you're going through relational changes. So that checks out. So is there anything that Catherine needs to know, especially anything that may be connected to this breakup and having met somebody new? Is there anything there? What's up, Rosie? Lots of indecisive energy in your cards. It's like, could it be this? Could it be that? You get the 2 of Wands, the Ace of Swords, and the 2 of Coins. I almost feel like, I feel inclined to tell you there's no wrong answers right now. Like almost like where you're going for the next month or so, between a Mercury retrograde in your rising sign, also between the fact that, you're going back and forth between getting out of something and meeting somebody new. Keep an open mind. Be open-minded and be optimistic, because Uranus will surprise you in the 7th house. And I think it's a lot of you having to rethink and rework whether or not you're really ready and willing to open up to somebody again. The 2 of Wands is about being excited about what the future holds. So rather than being worried about the breakup or the separation or wondering if things are going according to plan, it's about approaching this with a sense of excitement and feeling as if, okay, you know what? I don't know what the future holds, but I'm ready for it. And if somebody's supposed to come into my life and shake things up, like I'm here for it. I do think that there is also like this sense of interest. I do think it's mutual, because 2s talk about doing this dance and going back and forth. And the 2 of Wands is maybe getting the signal that, suddenly you're a little bit changed in your demeanor. And whether that means you're a little bit blue and they're picking up on that, or if it's that all of a sudden you're more chatty and more confident, they're picking up on that. And the Ace of Swords is saying it's time for like a refresh. So it's time for better communication. It's also time to really get clear, I think, with this Mercury retrograde, because the swords deal with communication, in who you are. And unfortunately, a lot of the oppositions in Scorpio to Uranus and Taurus is defining who you are outside of other people. And that other people are inconsistent, not necessarily stable. They're not always going to be around. They can be kind of flippant. So it's not about attaching yourself to the idea of this new person. It's about you going, okay, somebody can leave my life, they just did, somebody can come in, but I'm trying to focus on kind of getting my groundedness and not being thrown off by other people coming in and out. And easier said than done. But things are new. Everything is new for you. So it's about finding new ways to connect, communicate, and also figure out who you are now that you're no longer in a defined relationship. Obviously, there's no cup cards coming up. There's nothing saying, yes, it's going to be a new relationship. It's saying really about approaching this with an open mind, being open to communication. What can other people teach you right now about how you can change the way that you connect and communicate? And the 2 of Pentacles is about weighing your options, going back and forth. This does mean, I think, with both of the twos that there's a potential here, but also I think the Two of Pentacles is in a way you going like, ooh, do I want to mix, you know, business and pleasure? Do I want to do that? Does it feel like it's maybe a good choice but the wrong time? Because I feel like a lot of this is timing, and perhaps things are going to be a little bit more stable in the relationship department as you get to about a month from now, because the Ace of Swords is going to take about a month for you to get through that. The Two of Coins is also saying a lot of things are up in the air. So if you want to go into a relationship, you can, but nothing is really defined right now. If you decide that you want to prioritize working on yourself, you can, but you can only do that for so long. So much of what's happening right now is the changes in your relationships are trying to get you outside of your comfort zone and learning how to be more vulnerable, or recognizing and realizing what needs to change so you can go into a stable relationship at some point throughout this next year. Saturn and Neptune also sitting in your fifth house of romance, trining Jupiter and a bunch of stuff, is also about keeping an open mind with relationships. Maybe it's going to be about dating. So I could see the Two of Wands as taking that time and going, all right, it's time for me to go and do some things that I wasn't able to do in that relationship. Or maybe it is good for me to be traveling. Or what did I learn about that relationship? What did it teach me about myself and what I'm working through? So give it about a month or two. It does look like things are going to kind of balance out. There's no definitive guarantee that this is going to be a relationship, but at the very least, it's going to help you come out of your shell and kind of communicate. But ultimately, I think with the Two of Coins, you're going to realize that it's really not the best time, that you're open to, you know, chatting and having companionship, but that you're feeling like you're still trying to work some stuff out before you're really ready to put yourself out there again. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Good luck with the healing. And I definitely feel like it can be good to have a little bit of like back and forth flirting, you know, to kind of get you out of your shell. All right, we've got Brianna. And then we've got Julie. And then we've got Estella. Thank you guys for your patience. You're welcome. All right, so Brenna says, hi Candace, started a new job 2 weeks ago. So far it's been okay, but I'm definitely not happy. The 9-to-5 corporate job is just not my thing, but I was desperate. What messages does the tarot have for me in regards to this new job? I'm a Gemini rising. Thank you so much. Well, that doesn't surprise me as a Gemini rising. You got Saturn and Neptune back in your 10th house and you're like, do I want this? Is this working for me? You know, and also the Mercury retrograde, which is definitely impacting you as it's about how you communicate. And we're seeing lots of, you know, inconjuncts and quincunx happening. The Mercury retrograde is actually going back into your 6th house. So it's going to give you the opportunity to give yourself a little bit more time with that particular job, right? So when Mercury retrogrades happen, we reevaluate, rethink, reassess, we change our mind. So I don't know when you started, but we've been in the shadow since like, I think mid-October. So it's natural when you have a Mercury retrograde in the 6th house, that's like, ugh, do I still want to work here? Do I like it here? Do I not? And I would say give it a little bit of time, because you need to let Mercury come back into Scorpio, and you need to Saturn and Neptune in your 10th house, because you may actually realize once you get in the swing of it, hey, I can actually manage it. But let's see, what is the cards want you to say? Obviously, Page of Swords is going to be the card of the evening. Sometimes it does that. I'm not surprised to be seeing so much of this card coming up, because I feel like so many themes with this Mercury retrograde in Sag is we can blow situations up, right? It's ruled by Jupiter. Things can seem more dramatic than usual. We're experiencing more mental burnout. We're more likely to say things or do things or kind of have knee-jerk reactions. And so I think about over this next week, you're going to see Mercury, your ruler, coming into conjunction with Mars. And that means that there could be some tension in how you're communicating, potentially going back and forth with people at work. And I would say just be mindful and not be going into work expecting the worst, or expecting that you're gonna have to defend yourself, or that somebody's gonna be kind of curt with you. Like, just take a breath. Because as you get more comfortable in your routine, I think actually it can kind of stabilize for you a bit. The Page of Swords can be talking about being mindful of your mindset before you go into work, be mindful of how you're communicating. This can also mean that you're contemplating or exploring other options. And that could mean thinking about going and taking a course or a different area of study, or maybe you're actively looking for new jobs, or you're seeking employment somewhere. During the retrograde, you can do that if that's what you want to do. I wouldn't make any serious commitments until the end of November, maybe the beginning of December. And you'll have another Mercury retrograde in your career zone actually in March of 2026. So that'll still be playing off of eclipses. You know, retrogrades could mean you're changing your mind. And I definitely feel like for you personally, now is a good time that if you're having any doubts, that you start thinking about a plan B. It doesn't mean that you have to leave. It means that you're coming up with a strategy, you're contemplating looking at another position or getting into another, you know, job field, and you're going to start putting out feelers and you're going to be looking. So if you know this is not where you want to stay long term, then you're being proactive, right? The page to start the process of connecting and communicating and going on your search to find something new. Do I think it's necessarily for you where you are? I mean, I get the Page of Swords and the World card. So I don't know if it's more the job itself. I think, like you said, it's more connected to, well, something doesn't necessarily resonate with this 9 to 5. Is it? Or is it the position that you're in? Is it possible that maybe you could find something that would be in a better, you know, kind of environment or a better team or even a company or something that is still 9 to 5, but it's going to be something that you're going to enjoy more, possibly? Because the Page of Swords wants to be curious. It wants to be excited and it wants to have something different and kind of changeable. And if you feel like this is kind of boring and bland and you're not getting that stimulation, you're getting that message now, so you can either start looking over the next month and find something new, or potentially for you to be prepared to make a segue and make a change as you're getting into February and March 2026. So get to looking, right? And if you don't feel mentally stimulated enough or kind of like, you know, things are getting kind of monotonous, yeah, I think it is a good idea for you to be looking for something else. And certainly training, certification, something that's going to give you a leg up in another industry might be what you're exploring. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Definitely a lot of that. I've seen a lot of already with like the Mercury retrograde. People are like, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to do this. And like, yeah, but just, you know, don't make a change until you have a fallback plan, because we can do things almost too quickly. And I would be really cautious of that retrograde in your 6th house to not give it a little bit of time to at least come up with a plan if you're going to make a segue. All right. We have got Julie, and then Estella, and then Lo. And if you guys want to get a reading, scan the QR code up here, get in the queue. We're doing readings for $20 for 1 card, $40 for 3. What's up, Patty? I'll put you in my list here. I'll take you next after the next reading. So we'll take Estella and then Patty. Excuse me, I take that back. Julie, Patty, Estella, in that order. All right, so Julie says, career reading. You're welcome. Julie here, I'm a Cancer ascendant, Aquarius sun, and Virgo moon. All the Cancer risings are like, what's going on with work? What's going on with work, right? The Jupiter retrograde, the Mercury retrograde at the same time. Woof. All right, so Julie says, I'm feeling stagnant at my current job. Is it time to move to better things? What is the energy surrounding around this? Well, I would say this to any Cancer rising, all right? Remember, Jupiter rules Sagittarius. So you're about to see this next week, Mercury is going to retrograde in your 6th house of work. And it's ruled by Jupiter, which is in your 1st house, which is also about to retrograde this week. So there's a lot of reevaluations regarding scheduling work and also health that's going to be taking place. And also it's going to be about how you can get organized, how you can get in order, how you can be more productive, and maybe changing direction in your career beliefs. So let's see what we can tell Julie about this potential, you know, job situation. Is it time to move on to better things? And what energy is surrounding the career stuff? Look at this as the last period of time, Cancer risings, to get your shift in order. Because by the time we are getting into next year, February, March, Saturn and Neptune are moving into your 10th house. That means that it's go time, and many of you guys are going to be doing something completely different, or you're going to be managing something, you're going to be launching businesses. So you're starting to feel the breakdown now. And I'm laughing because here is the Wheel of Fortune. That is Jupiter, Sagittarius. Holy cow. Wheel of Fortune, the Lover's card, and the Tower card. Julie, do you have a feeling that it's like if you don't get out of there, something's going to happen? Like, is your gut telling you like, okay, either, you know, start being proactive and getting ready to make the shift before something happens, or I get pushed out, or the shit hits the fan? Because that's how I'm kind of seeing it. Not in a situation where you're doing anything wrong, right? Not at all. Yeah, Rob, I've got you. You're a couple of readings away. But the Tower card is kind of glaringly obvious that inevitably there's going to be something that's going to kind of break down, or it's going to fall apart, and it's not going to be sustainable, or it's not going to be working. Okay, so that's something to think about. Wheel of Fortune coming up is saying, hey, this is Jupiter and Sagittarius energy saying think bigger. So if you're feeling stagnant in your current position, really I would start by asking yourself, do you like where you're at? Do you enjoy it? Is there a need for you to potentially start exploring other things? What other departments, because the Lover's card could represent going to a different department, or it could represent going to a different location, working different schedules. It could also represent there being other options or other people who would potentially be interested in working with you. And like, are you going to see some of those out? Is there a possibility that if you go and apply for jobs that you're going to get a call back? Yes, 100%, because other people are going to be interested in you because you're putting that out there. She says, my boss has been odd, showing interest. Well, I mean, I don't think that, like I said, I don't think it's anything that's going to end because of your performance or because of, you being in your position. If something's going to end, it's going to be because there's something that's either going on in the office or something that's going on with the company that will eventually lead to you being like, okay, well, now I got to get out of here. When that'll happen, I mean, knowing your astrology, most likely you're going to see this more in the new year. You're going to see this more February through April of next year, especially because this is a card that talks about kind of like the May-June time. So it kind of lines up with the astrology. And the Wheel of Fortune coming up now is saying, look, now, the fortune is kind of getting involved. Wheel of Fortune doesn't always mean positive. It means sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. And maybe you feel like there is not enough excitement at work, or it's becoming monotonous, or it's becoming boring, or you're feeling like you've kind of hit that ceiling where there's no much more room for growth. So it's asking you or encouraging you to take a chance and see potentially what else could be out there. Now, the Lover's card also talks a lot about finding something you're passionate about. It could be about finding something that you really enjoy. I think we're going to see a lot of opportunities for Cancer risings, obviously, to potentially make some shifts in their belief about work, right? Saturn and Neptune in your 9th house, sure, education, travel, but Saturn really deals with your career. So it's going to be, where do you see your career going? Do you really believe that this is the right line of work for you? And if you feel like something is not working, as you get into next spring with Saturn and Neptune in your 10th, there's going to be a change. I think the change won't come until about April, May, June of 2026 for you. And now is a good time to start thinking about it. The Tower card, unfortunately, there's no way to candy coat that. That means inevitably this will get to a point where you're going to be like, this is not going to be, doable, or this is not something that I really, it's not sustainable. And a lot of Cancer risings need to be prepared. They may have cutbacks at work. You may see certain departments and certain employees, get let go or fired. You may be understaffed and overworked and underpaid. You may also see situations where, you're dealing with people at work that are just not competent, or they're not communicating well, and it's really impacting your ability to feel like you can lead. So you're going to get hit with that retrograde that's going to go through there, and it's going to make you question whether or not, you can manage some of the changes that are going on. She says, I do feel that way, monotonous. I have an interview this coming Tuesday, but I'm scared because of all the retrogrades. No. The retrograde's great for a Cancer rising. The fact that it's retrograding in your 6th house into your 5th house is trying to get you back into work you enjoy, having more fun, being more creative, and dating. And it's also going to trine Jupiter in your sign, right, on your ascendant. So really this is about having faith that you can change your job, you can change your habits, you can change your schedule, you can change your office. If you approach this period now with optimism and a willingness to take risks, you're avoiding potentially getting to a point next year where it's going to be like, sorry, we're having layoffs. And then you're going to be like, shit, what am I going to do? So it's better to get out and listen to what your gut is telling you. And you have to have faith in yourself that you can make this change. And ultimately you're doing it because it's going to be something that's going to make you feel happier, right? Because of the trines and the aspects that you're going to be seeing from the 5th house retrograde to Jupiter, and also Saturn and Neptune. So I think it's a good idea that you're considering other options. Maybe if you do decide to have like a record scratch moment and you're like, I'm going to take this job, I'm out. The Tower card could mean them going, wait a minute, what do you mean you're leaving? Like, we didn't realize this, and the impact of you leaving potentially has on your company or your boss. So keep it moving. It's definitely time to kind of get that stagnant energy out. All right, we're going to take Patty, and then after Patty, I will have Estella and Lo. Patty says, new-ish level 4 member. Would be grateful for anything you can tell me. Sun in Cancer, Moon in Scorpio, Rising Libra. All right, well, let's take a look for my Libra rising friend. What does Patty need to know? You're welcome. All right, Patty, let's see what the cards have to say for you. This deck is funny. You know, like if you own tarot, you know that certain decks have like personalities, and sometimes when a deck's like being naughty, you can tell, and you'll put some selenite on it, or you put it like in the sun for a little bit. And I have certain decks I use for certain readings, but this deck is it's very interesting. It definitely has like moods, but you know, I made it, so I'm not surprised. We've got the Ace of Swords, the Two of Swords, and the High Priestess card. Patty, what's going on? What's going on in terms of you feeling a little bit anxious and indecisive about making a decision that you know that you need to make? Because I think about, just to stereotype you, right? You're a Libra rising, retrogrades going through your second house, which is going to be impacting, you know, your second and your third house. So it's communication stuff. So it's like, do I say this? Do I not? Do I sign this contract? Do I not? You know, do I approach this conversation? Do I not? And the Ace of Swords is saying it's really time to maybe sit down and start taking some notes, or it's time to start writing out the pros and the cons of a situation so you can be more decisive. And that's not me taking swipes at your Libra rising. This is saying that you're anxious about making a commitment or deciding something or voicing something or starting the process of learning something, and you're going back and forth, you're wavering because the Two of Swords comes up. What's interesting is that the High Priestess in the final, you know, card is saying you already know what you have to do. You already know what kind of change you have to make. And for some of you guys, the Mercury retrograde is about your intuition, because Mercury rules your 12th house and it's also your 9th house lord. So it's about you maybe feeling like, should I be listening to my gut? Should I be listening to my dreams? Should I be pulling the trigger and making this commitment to something? Should I not? And the Ace of Swords is saying, if you take time to write it out, or if you're doing breath work, or if you're taking time to really process stuff, you can actually have the conversation that you're afraid to have, or make the decision that you've been putting off, or finally, you know, get straight with someone or straight with something. Perhaps maybe it's something that is coming up for you in dreams or intuitively. And the Two of Swords means that you kind of feel like it's not a good time to make some of these decisions and that you're feeling anxious. But at the end of the day, the High Priestess coming up is saying, you know when to do something and when not to do something. And so I'm wondering what it is that you're kind of struggling and you're going back and forth with. Let me see. Did you put a specific question? Just would like to be grateful for anything you can tell me. Especially being a Moon in Scorpio, right? Like having the Mercury retrograde going over or through the same sign as your Moon in the second house. It could be career related, it could be financially related, it could also be about whether or not you feel like you need to pull the trigger on something financially, or if you should wait. But listen to your gut, because the High Priestess doesn't need to take action. She already knows, and she's anticipating what's coming, and she just waits for everything to show up for her. Does look like there's a lot of shifts going on revolving around your security, you know, with your retrogrades. And I also think that this is about finding ways to be able to voice some of those concerns and getting it out in the open, so that way you feel safer. And I don't know if that's in a financial sense, in a relationship sense, in a work sense, but the answers are within you with the High Priestess. So if you take time to really kind of integrate and sit down and write out the pros and cons, or really start thinking about having the conversations before things start to get away from you, it's going to be better if you do it now rather than later. She says, I feel like a circus act with plates spinning on sticks. Well, I mean, you know, you're a Libra rising. So right now Jupiter's in your 10th house and it's squaring Libra. So it means there's an overabundance of work, responsibility, emotions. It's squaring your sign, so it's harder for you to be diplomatic. It's also making squares to Chiron and Aries, which is going to bring up some inevitable kind of relational issues. So whether you're afraid to have conversations in personal relationships, or you're afraid to disrupt the balance at work, part of what you've probably experienced in recent weeks as Mars has gone through your sign was you getting pulled in all different directions. Now with the Mercury retrograde happening, it's about you going like, okay, I need to take stock in what my non-negotiables are. It needs to be more about what I value, what I need, what's going to make me feel secure. And if you're going to ruffle some feathers, that's inevitable. You know, you're going to ruffle some feathers in relationships and also with people at work with some of the squares. She said, personal, social, and professional intuition is screaming to sit still, but be ready for anything. Your intuition, right, is telling you, you're receiving the message, the download, that even though you're overwhelmed and you feel like you should make a decision or that something needs to happen, you're waiting, and the intuition is going to kick in and give you further kind of direction. As a fellow Libra rising, I can tell you that, yeah, pretty much same. There are things that can be said, there are things that can be done, that can be initiated, but I know that with the retrogrades back into Scorpio, it's going to be more beneficial for me to just wait, to not push buttons and not say things or initiate things or start things. So looks like you got that message too. So give it a couple of weeks, about 2 to 4 weeks, and you're going to start to see this clear. And I feel like the answers are coming to you and for you. And you are going to have to make some definitive decisions about, I think, boundaries and telling people exactly what you need. So that way you're not feeling so out of balance and out of whack, right? I'm at the edge of hysterical laughter and all this nonsense. Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge is that the Ace of Swords wants to confront people. It wants to, like, you know, clear the air. And the Two of Swords is, if I do that, am I going to cause a bigger problem? Certainly with a Mercury retrograde in your third house, things can be blown out of proportion, for sure. So that's something that you want to consider. And time is on your side. So communication is definitely going to be a whole lot easier if you're waiting until the end of November. Good luck. Last call is going to be in about 9 minutes. So if you guys want to get in the queue. We have got, let's see. We've got Estella. And then we've got Lo. And then we've got Venus in Leo. Thanks, you guys, for your patience. I appreciate it. Okay, Estella. Hi, Candace. You warned me about this period in March. I don't like when messages start off like that. I moved to Portugal in August. I love this city, but work and living situation is a mess. What kind of tarot advice do you have? March 13th, 1993 in Germany. All right, let's take a look. Well, I'm sorry. What is your rising sign? Is it Virgo? Is it Virgo or Gemini? Because those are the ones that are like work, living situation. Let's take a look. So what can we tell Estella about what is going on? She's living in Portugal. She loves the city, but work and living situation is a bit stressful. Ooh, all right. Sometimes they do that, you know? We have got the 9 of Pentacles, the 8 of Cups, and the 5 of Swords. Girl, it's interesting that, you know, whatever it is that you had planned, the whole going to Portugal thing, 9 of Pentacles, going out, being independent, thriving. Like, yeah, I still think that even in spite of whatever's going on right now, like, you made the right moves. But it does look like that either money or work-related matters are becoming a bit of a challenge. So, you know, usually with the 9 of Pentacles, we feel free and capable and kind of flourishing and financially being set and independent, and we can, like, manage. And it looks like with the 8 of Cups coming up, you may be reaching a point where you're considering or contemplating whether or not you may have to leave. 8 of Cups is about walking away from something. And usually when the 8 of Cups comes up, we're walking away and we don't look back. So it almost looks like you're doing everything possible right now to make it so you can stay. And it looks like you really don't want to leave. I think with the 8 of Cups, in my opinion, you know, I don't really foresee you leaving. It's like if you stay and you're able to make it work, and if you're able to overcome some of the challenges with what's going on with work and home, I think you could swing it. But it looks like the stress in regards to all of this with the 5 of Swords is really difficult, and it's creating, I think, a challenge when it comes to communication and being able to kind of have like regular back and forth and feedback. So I don't know if the communication issues are in securing a solid living space or being able to, you know, have proof that work is working, you know, and that you can, you know, live there, that you can have the funds to live there. But you've got a couple of weeks here that's really going to dictate and determine whether or not you're going to stay or you're going to go. And I think if you do leave, you're looking at leaving, and I don't necessarily know if you're going to come back. The other thing to consider is the 5 of Swords does talk about like frustration and feeling like no matter what you do or how you're communicating, something's not connecting. So that's why I'm wondering if Mercury is tied to your 4th house or your 10th house, or, you know, if you're seeing retrogrades that are kind of impacting your 4th and your 10th house, it would make sense that it's going to be work related or, you know, potentially related to your home. But you have to watch out for miscommunications, because delays with communications, delays with, you know, getting emails or signing contracts are very common right now. I think the 5 of Swords tells me that you can get so frustrated and so fed up with the situation that it's almost going to hinder your communication even more. So I'm wondering if it's like a language barrier, or I'm wondering if it's just maybe better for you to be going and connecting with people in person. I also wonder, you know, if the 9 of Pentacles was you coming into it with a set amount of money, you know, to move there and anticipating on having a job and having a stable place, and like now things are kind of dwindling. So if it gets to a point where financially you're a bit of in a bind, you will leave. Don't feel defeated if that happens. I feel like you still went there for a reason, and there was a purpose for you to go and be there and be working there at that time. And the 5 of Swords is about being very careful, because if you get to a situation where, you know, both situations are stressing you out and you can't have consistent work or a consistent home situation, you're going to feel like you can't focus on the other thing. Work is always going to be pulling you in when you need to be focusing on your home, or your home situation is going to be critical. You need somewhere to live. While you're dealing with that, it's going to make it almost impossible for you to figure out work. And it's almost like you just can't win. The only other solution that I could really see with the 8 of Cups and the 5 of Swords is if you say to yourself, hey, I want to make it here, I want to be here, and I want to thrive, then you need to actually commit to the idea of, you know, going back to where you were at one point, getting stable with work and your living situation with intention to come back, so you can come back and you can do it the right way. But I think the experience of you being there, I still think, even in spite of what's happening, was good for you, because the 9 of Pentacles is going and feeling it out, being alone, thriving, being in a situation that you really enjoy. But maybe it's going to require you, you know, to do some reassessment before you could potentially return and really get to a place where you can stay there and you can thrive. Communication breakdown is the main thing. That 5 of Swords is no matter what you do, you feel like you're flustered because things aren't going your way. So if it's a language barrier, you know, try to talk to people in person or find some assistance with translation. If it's not, if it's more you're not getting the feedback or you're not getting the call back that you need, then this means that you may have to kind of strategize and decide that you need to make a difficult call and go back to where you were, so that way you can get stable, so that way you can return. But certainly it looks like the next 5 to 8 weeks are going to determine whether or not you can stay there. 9 of Coins tells me that this has been really about indulging and kind of being comfortable and enjoying the process. And now it's coming down to like the wire where you're getting kind of pinched. So certainly financial management is really important. And not feeling like if you do have to leave that you're a failure, because I think the 9 of Coins means that you were supposed to be there. It taught you a lesson. You were able to kind of make it on your own. But not having a stable living situation, or figuring out the home, that's the biggest problem. The work thing, I think you can actually manage. I think it's more about the living situation more than anything. So hopefully that helps, and definitely pay attention to the timeline that I'm giving you, because that's when these things are going to be going down. Good luck. Last call is in about 2.5 minutes. If you guys want to get in, I'll update the list in just a second. I've got Lo, Venus, and Rocio. And after that, I've got Corey, Robert, and Jacinda. So let's take a look at Lo. What's up, Lo? 3 cards. I want to know my fiance. Wait, hold on a second. I almost said fiance. I want to know my finance and money outlooks for the next coming 3 months. Any suggestions to improve finance? I'm in the crypto market. I'm a Libra rising, Sun, Moon in Aquarius. Yeah, I'm going to update the list in just a second, guys. But don't worry. If you guys got in, or if you get in the next minute, I'll update the list in just a second. All right, so I would say Miss Lo, be very careful with what's going on with the finances right now, being a Libra rising, because the retrograde is going from your 3rd house of communication in the mind back into the 2nd house, which is going to deal with money. Second half of November is definitely better for Libra rising financially, because you're going to see like the new moon there. It's going to be conjunct Mercury, but truth be told, for Libra rising, Mercury represents losses. So you have to be careful with Mercury retrograde in your 2nd house of resources and the oppositions to Uranus, because it's going to be shocking and surprising. So like The new moon in Scorpio in particular, you got to pay attention, because if you're taking risks, there can definitely be shocks and surprises with the market. Gains is actually going to be connected more to the second house lord Mars, and also it's going to be connected to your sixth house where Saturn and Neptune is. So things are being delayed. So let's see what the cards have to say. 8 of Cups, 6 of Coins or Pentacles, and then we've got the 5 of Wands. It's rough out there. I mean, I think that the 8 of Cups is about, there are some trades or there's some investments right now that you're looking at it and you're like, I have to walk away from this, right? Or I can't keep putting money into this, or I can't, come back from this. I have to just like leave it be. And it may mean that some of the decisions that you're making right now about where you are going to be, cashing out, or where you are going to just like let things ride, so be it. But there will be some investments that you're possibly going to abandon, or you're going to say, I'm not doing this anymore. I also think that with the 6 of Pentacles, at least it's coming up saying, there is going to be a bit of like an exchange. I think you'll be surprised when you see Venus opposing Uranus, when you see Mercury opposing Uranus, when you see the Sun oppose Uranus, because it can mean that suddenly something that you thought was lost is coming back to you. And when Venus is coming into conjunction with Mercury, this will happen in November, you may gain something back, but honestly, I think it's going to look a little rocky, and that there's going to be a sense of you going, nope, I'm not getting sucked into that trade, or I'm not going to be, trading that crypto or investing in that stuff anymore. I got burned. And you might actually see that you kind of come back up, where there's going to be some swings where you could get some things that can get back up to where you're breaking even, right? Which I guess is not ideal, but it's better than taking a loss. The 5 of Wands is a little tricky though, because you do feel like everything is kind of hitting at once, or that the changes that are going to be happening are going to be happening very quickly. Uranus and Taurus is very much about digital money, crypto, and Scorpio is about scarcity and it's about fear. So being that we're coming into a Mercury retrograde, I think everything kind of got shaken out the most recent couple weeks. And then as we're going to see, Mercury retrograde back into Scorpio, conjunct the Sun, we're going to see Venus in Scorpio, where everything kind of bled out, you're going to see a lot of people that are going to be jumping back in. And remember, that will trine Jupiter. So even though things have been horrific, I think that you have to really look at how many irons you have in the fire, because the problem with the 5 of Wands is you get kind of like bombarded with everything at one time. Like there's almost too many things going on at one time that you have to watch. Simplify. Figure out what you're willing to hold on to, get cautious and conservative with that. Figure out what you're willing to take risks, or potentially what you're willing to liquidate, and don't diversify as much, and try to kind of have like less cryptos or like less investments that you're looking at, and be putting it into things that you feel like you're not going to be constantly kind of fighting an uphill battle. Like I know, right? Obviously that crypto is extremely volatile. I mean, that's just kind of part of how things go. But if you are deciding to continue to be going, in the direction of trying to watch all of these things, it's too scattered. You're going to be trying to do too much. Simplify things. Focus more on what has the most likelihood of at least coming back, especially over like the next 5 or 6 months. And you could go and look at the astrology chart of some of the cryptos, especially if it's like some of the major ones, Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever it is that you're into. There are charts for them out there. And I can tell you that we're going to see sparks that are going to be flying next spring. Next spring, when we start seeing the eclipses in Leo, that's going to light up the Bitcoin chart. That's going to light up anything in regards to gold. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to happen. And we know that those two assets obviously run generally when we see, more kind of like chaos and things kind of going on in the market, because people are going to see it as safe. So if you're somebody who's a long time holder and there are certain things that you want to hold on to that are going to be valuable, so you ride out the storm. But try not to be watching too many things at one time, because I think that's what's kind of getting you down. And it looks like you may be able to break even on certain things. And if you got burned so badly on a few trades or a few investments, you're probably going to look at it and you're going to go, I'm never doing that again. I've learned my lesson. And watch for the give and take. Just be careful with taking money out of savings with Venus going through your second house, because you could be tempted to be like, oh, that actually paid off, I'm going to buy more. And it can kind of flip again. She says, too scattered with info, just trying to look at too many things at once. Simplify. Focus more on what you can be holding that's going to have long-term value, right? Hopefully that's helpful for you. It's nice to see you. Good luck. I was thinking about you when I was seeing all that stuff in the market. I was like, I wonder what she thinks. All right. We've got Venus in Leo, Rocio, Corey, Robert, Jacinda. I'm updating my list too. Who else? Coltrane, Susan, Julie. So if you heard your name, I've got you. You're welcome. All right, so Venus and Leo. I want to know if my relationship with my new partner has a future. Our composite chart has the North Node conjunct Saturn in the 12th. LOL. Our synastry is cool. Sun, Mercury, Jupiter, Juno, Vertex conjunct each other's nodes. Wow. Composite chart formation. All right, let's take a look. I like the composite. Let's see. Chart is North Node conjunct Saturn in the 12th. What sign is the North Node Saturn conjunct in the 12th? But the Mercury, Jupiter, Juno, Vertex, that's pretty rare. It means it's at least a relationship you're going to get involved in where you guys are going to talk about long-term commitment in marriage. Even if it's not with each other, it'll help you kind of realize and kind of work through some of the mental obstacle course of figuring out if that's what you want through each other. All right, let's take a look. What can we tell them about this new potential partner? Is there a future? It's going to leave you on a cliffhanger. You get the Hanged Man. Card at the bottom, which is always my confirmation card, is the Ace of Cups. So I actually see this as maybe the Hanged Man is like this internal knowing that I don't really need to do anything right now. Like there is this sense of feeling that the relationship is very sacred, or there is a purpose. There's a reason why you guys came together. And maybe it's like an overall sense of feeling calm and not feeling like you need to make any moves, which is probably a good thing, right? Like a lot of people are like, oh, you want to get in the relationship and like the butterflies and all that stuff. That's great. But if you're in a relationship where there's this constant state of what's going to happen and is it going to work and are we a match and what's going to go on, I don't really feel like you're supposed to have that. Like if you're with somebody that is a good match, it should actually be very grounding and you should feel secure and there isn't this worrying about the future. So I like that the Hangman is coming up because it does symbolize that 12th house. That's like, well, we have some work to do, right? With Saturn, we have some kind of karmic obligation or responsibility when it comes to each other. And the Ace of Cups being the confirmation card is saying there is this ease that comes to the connection and knowing that, yeah, sure, it may be a slow burn. It may take time for things to really evolve. It might take time to have a commitment or say I love you or do all of the other relationship things that may come. But there's also like this silent and still knowing that's like, wow, this person's meant to be here and I'm willing to be here in this moment and like be willing to be vulnerable and kind of feel suspended in a way and be present with them and see where the future kind of leads us. But the Hangman is saying you have to just kind of be here and you can't make any moves right now. And also that the future is yet to be decided. But I think the Ace of Cups coming up as the confirmation card is saying maybe in your heart, you know that this is something very significant. It's just a matter of waiting for it to kind of unfold, right? Interesting reading. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Okay, we've got Rocio. I don't know if I saw your question, but I think you might have sent it. So I don't see it in the memo. Can you send me your question? Oh, there it is. Sun and Leo here. What's the energy like this month after the last full moon? All right. Well, being a Leo, I mean, obviously that was very much connected to your career, but let's see what I can tell you about pulling a card on the energy for the next month. All right, so what can we tell them about the energy for the next month? Wow, this is definitely the card of the night, guys. Sorry, but no matter how many times I shuffle, this is what wants to come up. Two of Wands. Once again, keeping an open mind. I think that, like when I think about Leos in general, I don't know your rising sign, but I think about how the Mercury retrograde is going from the 5th house of Sag to Scorpio in the 4th. And so a lot of you guys could be kind of going at, you know, life where you're like, all right, I have to deal with the past before I can figure out what makes me happy and move forward. It can also be about taking risks and taking chances in love or in relationships. It can also be about needing to go and deal with the past and what's been buried emotionally, right? Scorpio in your 4th. With the Two of Wands coming up, opportunity for travel, opportunity for excitement. There is a sense of you making plans and kind of weighing your options and deciding where you want to go or what you want to do. With a Mercury retrograde in your 5th house, it's like, well, is there opportunity to plan travel to see friends? Are you, getting outside of your usual hangout spots in your local community? Is there a sense of you being more adventurous when it comes to dating or potentially with your hobbies? And I think that could be good because sometimes a Mercury retrograde, you know, that's coming or going from the 4th house is getting out of the house. Adventures or potentially contemplating changes with your living situation or future moves or relocations can also be coming up for you guys, which you don't see now, but may be very likely for you in this next year. So anything that comes up about changing or transforming your inner world, maybe being a little bit more spontaneous, a little bit more adventurous, and getting out there, I think is ultimately what you want to do, especially with all that heavy energy that's been in Scorpio recently. A lot of you guys can just feel like emotionally you're drowning. So having something that's fun, getting you out of the house is definitely going to be exactly what the doctor ordered. And also I think that this is going to be positive for you, especially if you're doing any research or thinking about planning a road trip or, you know, kind of traveling and being a little bit more curious and doing some investigation work into where you could potentially go, even if it's not right now. This could be a really good time for doing that. So hopefully that's helpful for you, my Leo sun. We've got Corey, Robert, and Jacinda. What's up, Corey? Corey says, hi, Candace. I am jaded by the 9-to-5 and layoffs have started. I decided to throw my hat in the ring of voice acting for video games and audiobooks. I like that. I got my setup and built a couple profiles for jobs, looking for a little insight on this endeavor. Sun, Venus, natal 3rd, by the way. Okay, so I remember you have a major Taurus placement, right? Is that Sun and Venus and Taurus in your 3rd? Is that what you're talking about? Taurus is the voice. Sun and Taurus. Okay. So Sun and Taurus, Venus and Taurus in the 3rd house, making money, business-related things, connecting to the voice. So I like that. So let's take a look and see what the cards say. I also like this because if you have Pisces in the 1st house, you know, there's trines between Saturn and Neptune, which could be artistically, creatively, you know, seeking new goals when it comes to work. And those trines to Jupiter in the 5th house could be games, things that are connected to younger people or animation or cartoons or anything involving children's shows. So let's take a look. What can we tell Corey and see if we can give her some insight on whether or not this is a good move for her? Particularly things that involve youth or children. Okay, that, I mean, the Sun card is what's coming up. I have a feeling, especially because the 3rd house is going to be about anything connecting to books, not necessarily screens, but books, audiobooks. And Venus being there means that they're going to be probably more inclined to want to hire you also because you're a woman. And it's going to be anything that's going to be pleasure and also like leisure related. So just kind of spitballing. Sure, yeah, audiobooks, right? But also animation, video games, things for youth, things connecting to narration also, especially if it's going to be for kids or for children. I would also go as far as saying, you know, if you got Sun and Venus in your 3rd house, Pisces rising, so your Sun's going to be connected to your 6th house. Being able to do some kind of work that's going to be changeable and flexible, being able to do something that's going to allow you to have like more freedom. Jupiter's going to be, you know, obviously in that house next year. It's going to trine Saturn in your 2nd house of the voice. Yes, I think it's a good idea. You may also want to consider other things you could do. So do you want to do, and this sounds weird, but I'm just going off of the Venus and the Sun placement, like ESMR, right? Where you could be starting a channel where you're going to be reading bedtime stories, or you're going to be reading, you know, traditional poetry, or you're going to be reading recipes or narrating things that's connected to food, right? Very Taurus in the 3rd house, or food shows or anything where it's connecting to food or beauty. These will be other areas that you want to consider. But the Sun card is like a heck yeah. It's saying not only is it good, like it's a good idea, but it's also saying it's creative, it's fun, it's going to be spontaneous, and you're going to have lots of like changeable kind of options with your job, and you can get creative with how you want to do that. And putting your voice out there and other people hearing what you have, I think that's a good move. Oh, gardening too. So there you go. So you could be, you know, doing voiceover stuff, or you could be talking about that and gardening or anything that's connected to like leisure. Yes, I think it's a good idea. You'll find, especially next year, as Jupiter is going into your 6th house, you're going to be doing more creative work anyway. Maybe it feels a little confusing right now and you're like, how is this going to work? Like, what's going to happen? And the Mercury retrograde is about keeping an open mind. And I think you have a lot to learn as it goes into the 9th house about how to promote yourself and how to get your voice out there and how to be seen. So a lot of it's teaching yourself about the mics and how you're going to be editing things and how it's going to sound, and maybe even looking for some representation so that way you can get maybe callbacks or you can get more visibility. But yes, I think it's a really good idea. So have fun with it, especially with Jupiter in your 5th house. Anything that deals with children, like cartoon voices, video games, yeah, definitely consider doing that. I hope it's a good run for you because that's got a lot of like diversity to it. There's a lot of things that you can do with that. Readings are now closed. You're very welcome. I've got Robert, Jacinda, Coltrane, Susan, and Julie. I'm visiting Venice, but I bounced around a bit. Well, that's fun, Matt. I hope you have fun. I used to live down there. All right, so, well, not Venice, but I lived in LA. All right, so we've got Robert. What's up, Robbie? Robert says, I'm heading to Seattle tonight on a train for the holidays. All moved out of my apartment. How does the rest of the year look for me? Thanks. All right, let's see what we can tell Robbie about this home for the holidays bit. Just recently moved. Cancer rising. So definitely a lot of the changes with work schedules, things will apply to you and your living situation. So what can we tell him about this change? All right, so in this order, I have got the Fool card, the the 7 of Swords, and the 6 of Pentacles. All right, so it's an adventure. Probably just taking any kind of like train or public transport from one state to another is an adventure, but you get the Fool card. So this is saying it's about approaching this and being optimistic and being open-minded and being open to the idea of starting over, of reset. We know with the Fool card, it's also saying anything is possible. So that could mean in a sense of, you know, things could go amazing. And then also there could be some things that could be a little tricky. You know, in the traditional Rider-Waite, you see all of the mountains and everything, and he's standing there with the dog and he's got the companion with him and he's open-minded about the future, but there's that potential of falling off a cliff or making a mistake. And so the Fool card coming up in the past position is saying that maybe there is a sense of, you know, feeling a little anxious because you're going back to a place that you've been before. Maybe there's a sense of you going like, I don't want to repeat some of the past patterns, or I'm having to go back to a place where I've lived, where I have history, and I'm open to fresh beginnings and hitting restart. But also there can be this reevaluation that's like, is this where I'm going to stay? Is this going to be the end-all be-all for me? And at least you're going into it, keeping an open mind, saying, I know that I'm going to be here for a period of time. I don't know where this is going to lead me next. Maybe it'll be a different area of the state. Maybe it'll be a different part of the city. Maybe I'll leave. But you don't really have a plan. And that's okay. Right now, you're coming up as the 7 of Swords. So this can be tricky because there is a sense of you going into it going, can I trust this situation? Do I feel like I'm going to have support? Unfortunately, the 7 of Swords has a card that can be a little tricky, and it can represent that certain things are being presented in a way and then they could actually be very different down the road. So whether that's, you know, getting into a spot where somebody's saying, hey, I'm going to give you a job, or hey, you know, you can stay here, or, you know, I'm going to do this for you. And then you're like, can I trust that? Like you're almost a little apprehensive. Like there's a sense of you going, yeah, this is great and everything, but I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I think that, not to be negative, but I think that that's important to kind of keep in the back of your mind, because with the 7 of Swords and the Fool card coming up, it's about you going, maybe this is bringing up for me, you know, some PTSD because I've had some stuff happen here, or I don't want to repeat the past, and you're really cautious about who you can trust. And maybe your trust has been kind of shaken recently. You know, maybe there's been some things that have gone on with friendships or relationships or even with like work stuff that's making you go, I don't really have a lot of stability, and I don't want to be in a situation where I'm feeling like, you know, somebody's telling me that they're going to give me a job or they're going to give me something or they're going to help me, and then it ends up not being that situation. So you're really going into it needing to have eyes wide open, and also needing to really prioritize, I think, feeling independent and successful on your own. So you're also going into this with a job, with like a what's the word that I'm looking for like you have an agenda. Like there's like a plan that you have right now where you're like, I don't want to be relying on anybody. I don't want to have to be, you know, chasing leads for jobs or things that may not potentially play out. And it looks actually positive for you, even though you're a little kind of apprehensive. The final card is the Six of Pentacles. So this means that there is going to be a good exchange, a good give and take. This could mean that, you know, you end up getting into a situation where, you know, there's an exchange for work and living, or there's going to be, you know, an opportunity for somebody to say, hey, I'll pay you and I'll train you. You making a living and not just surviving, thriving, and getting the necessary means to get your expenses covered, your home covered, and also being in a situation where you're going to receive some kind of education or some kind of training that's going to allow you to further your career. And it looks like it's going to be about a 6-month period. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to stay in the same place for 6 months, but it's about 6 months of being like, all right, I'm going to feel this out and see how it's going to go. And I think you're going to get a lot of support because the Six of Coins is saying that somebody is willing to help you. They're willing to be generous with you and kind of help you get on your feet. And they're being an exchange in the process. So making sure that everything is a fair exchange seems to be important. Being optimistic about what the future holds, and also not feeling like this is the end all be all place that you're going to end up being. And learning to trust yourself, I think, with the Seven of Swords, and not feeling like, you know, there's reason to not be able to trust people around you. And also being generous. I think being generous with your time, being generous with what resources you have, because it looks like that's going to be coming back to you, and people are going to see that and they're going to want to do the same. So good luck on your adventure. I hope that that's a good one for you, and that your travel and your trips go smoothly. All right, we've got Jacinda, and then Coltrane, Susan, and Julie. Thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. Jacinda, did you send me a question? I don't see it in the memo. I'm trying to see if you sent it earlier, but I'm not seeing it. So if you're listening, let me know your question. Jacinda, there she is. I'm new to your live. Sag rising, Cap sign, Aquarius moon. Anything with health, wealth, and compassion. My husband passed away a few years ago. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, let's take a look and see what we can tell you for your reading. If there's anything that you need to know. Certainly the Sag rising horoscopes have been a little tricky, quite emotional, lots of change going on emotionally with the family on the home front, and you got a Mercury retrograde coming up in your sign, so I hope you are thriving. Let's see what we can tell her and what she needs to know. Wow. Oof. We have got the Five of Swords, the Eight of Cups, and the Seven of Swords again. So here's the question. Is there something that has to, like, are you having to leave something? Are you contemplating leaving something behind? Are you dealing with a home change, a family change? That Eight of Cups in the center position is being like, is it time for me to move on? And I don't know if this is emotionally or if this is like more literally. Have no luck making new friends and had to let go of some old ones. Okay, so, you know, I think that for the most part, you've made peace with what you're having to leave behind. If that's coming up in the current position, it's basically being like, you know what, whatever I have to walk away from, I have to walk away from, even if I have to do it on my own. Certainly it feels lonely. The Eight of Cups is a lonely card because you're going off and you're venturing and you don't know what's in the future. And you have to kind of turn your back on something. And I think the Five of Swords is saying that there's been either internal conflict, or there's been a difference of opinions, or there's been some issues in communicating and connecting, and almost kind of feeling like people don't have your back. And maybe when you're trying to voice that, or maybe you've been in a vulnerable state, or you've been really sensitive and you're trying to reach out, you feel like other people are just like not very receptive, or they're not really understanding, or they're more self-concerned. And perhaps maybe it's left you kind of feeling a little abandoned and feeling a little lonely. I do think that the Eight of Cups, it is saying it's good for you to walk away, especially because the Seven of Swords is saying that there is reason to walk away. It's not like petty conflicts. There is definitely a sense of you going, there are certain things that friends do that, you know, they have your back, they're consistent, they're reliable, and also they're trustworthy. And the Seven of Swords can be a card that does talk about like somebody not being loyal, somebody being dishonest, there being, you know, some stuff that's being said to your face, and being very different conversations with other people. And it also talks about the communication between multiple people. So it can almost be like a he said, she said, where you're not aware that certain friends are saying certain things, and then you're getting wind of it through like the telephone game. And then kind of being like, oh, I'm so hurt that rather than going and dealing with the conflict, I'd rather just leave this one and walk away and go my own way, because it's easier than to confront them and go back and forth with them and try to explain myself, because ultimately the Eight of Cups feels very hurt. I do think that it's smart that you did what you did, because the Seven of Swords is saying it would have continued to be a perpetual issue where there would have been, you know, friends that I think were being deceptive or were not being genuine or being honest. I also think that it's hard to go back and forth with some of these people because it looks like they were not going to be receptive to constructive criticism or even hearing you out. Certainly with some of these cards coming up, there's still a lot of mental stress and tension and kind of feeling like maybe you want to get a word in, or you want to say something, or you want to have the last word. And I would say it's really not worth it, because you're going to be trying to have conversations with people who are not very self-aware, and people who are also going to kind of fight you tooth and nail. And they're going to want to try to say it's you. And obviously this retrograde, you know, it's going from your sign as a Sag rising into what's going to be your 12th house. So this is a period where you're reevaluating, you're reassessing. You're supposed to be turning within and kind of disconnecting from certain social groups, or kind of taking a step back where you're just going to be retreating and focusing on your mental well-being and healing. And you'll emerge, especially as you're getting into, you know, later in December and January, with like a newfound sense of self, and also like more confidence, and maybe recognizing and realizing that you've really kind of buried some of these issues that have been coming up with friends. You're not going to internalize it, and you're ready to start something new. Nevertheless, not easy, because it does feel to me like a lot of the things that went on were unfair. And it also looks to me like there was a lot of disappointment because of people who you felt like should have been there, kind of left you high and dry. So it's going to take about 8 weeks to kind of get through this fully. As you're experiencing these Mercury retrogrades and energies like in your first and in your 12th house, meditation, soaking, detoxing, cleansing, all of these things can be really helpful. And it can also kind of ease your body, so that way you're not having communication issues. And because Mercury rules your 7th house of relationships, you may find that through that retreat and kind of checking out, people are going to notice like that you're gone, or that you're not making an effort. And you might find that people come back and they try to check in on you. If you're not ready to talk to them, it's okay to be like, I'm good, or I need some space, or, you know, just give me some time to come around. You don't have to immediately respond to other people who may be wanting to kind of push your buttons in the next couple of weeks, because I do see a little bit of conflict energy coming up with all of these swords. So if you made the decision that it's best for you to walk away, stick to it, focus on your peace. Don't be surprised if people come back around. Good luck. All right, we've got Coltrane, and then Susan and Julie. All right, so Coltrane says, is a major relationship coming soon for me? I feel like this Cancer rising guy, which my 10th house Mars conjuncts his ascendant exact. As a Libra rising, 29 degrees, I'm stressed, and I wish I could just focus on myself rather than relationships when I don't even know if it will happen. All right, well, let's take a look. You're very welcome. All right, so what's going on with this guy that she has a crush on? So there's like a Mars, what is it? 10th house Mars conjunct his ascendant exact. All right, so you kind of feel like you want to manage that situation. And 29 degrees Libra rising is always kind of like out of whack, you know, because there's always this like critical turning point in relationships. So let's see what I can tell you about this connection. Is there a major relationship coming with this guy? As a Libra rising, you should know, Saturn and Neptune, by whole sign standards, are going into your 10th house next year. So there's going to be a lot of reevaluating relationships and whether or not you need more independence, or whether or not there's somebody new coming in. And so much of the focus right now, I think, with Saturn and Neptune back in your 5th house is trying to get clarity on a relationship. So it's kind of normal to kind of feel like you don't really know where things are going right now. So the cards say the Temperance card, the 3 of Swords, and the 2 of Wands. Girl. And I would say this to any Libra rising, right? Any Libra rising. Saturn going into the 7th house is strong, but it's not strong in Aries. It's not good for marriage. It's not good for commitment. It's not good for long-term stuff. Like relationships get tested, likely because you're going to see immaturity and issues with commitment from other people. Now that may be longer down the road because you're 29 degrees, but you'll still see that show up next year. Also, the Temperance card is coming up, which is saying timing. Pace yourself. It's a matter of timing, waiting for the right time for things to kind of come in. Even though you're a Libra rising, the astrology for you in romance is really great because Saturn and Neptune's in your 5th house. It's trining Jupiter, which is in your 9th house. It's good for romance, travel. And I think the Temperance card is saying it's time to pump the brakes a little bit. Don't be so focused on relationships. Don't get out of balance. Allow yourself to have time to kind of come together naturally because, obviously you really want to relate to another person as a Libra rising. Go and look at what's happening with your natal Mars. So obviously him having angles conjunct your Mars or vice versa is going to light that relationship up like crazy. And Jupiter is in Cancer right now too. So it means that there could be lots of opportunity, for him to have relationships and connection and a hot and steamy thing. But my concern is what's coming up is the 3 of Swords. That's saying that if you aren't mindful of the timing and if you're rushing things and if things are out of balance or out of whack, you might think you're ready, but you will see through the Aries, transits with Saturn and Neptune, you're going to deal with people who may be confused or they don't know what they want or where they're going. And the 3 of Swords can be saying that you're heading in the direction if you're trying to be full steam ahead where there could be some heartbreak if you're not letting things unfold naturally, right? The 3 of Swords can also be about talking about grieving and getting over something. So it can also be implying that there's a possibility that even though you're in a potential relationship, or a dynamic that could be leading to one, that there could still be some unresolved issues and heartbreak that you're still needing to work through. And I could see that with Saturn and Neptune being in your 5th house. It's like, where did you have a broken heart, or where did you fall in love, or what's happened in the past where somebody abandoned you or they ghosted you, and that needs to be healed so you're not applying some of those insecurities to this current connection, feeling like you need to be full steam ahead. I also think that the 2 of Wands is saying there's potential here, like why rush it? If it's a really good connection and if you feel like the chemistry and the connections are off the chart and it's the right person at the right time, then, trying to rush things is not really necessary if there is potential for some kind of long, term connection down the road. 2 of Wands makes me feel like you need to go on a trip together, you need to travel together, which your astrology says too, like, Saturn and Neptune in your 5th, of romance, trining Jupiter in your 9th. Get to know them, talk about their philosophies about life, talk about their belief system, go on a trip, even if it's like a weekend getaway, so you can get to know each other better and not feel like there has to be so much pressure on what are we doing, what's going on with where we are at now. Be more present in the moment. That way you're not rushing things and things aren't getting ahead of themselves, which is potentially setting you up for some kind of heartbreak and also putting you in a situation where, you're kind of skewing off to one side where it could be a relationship, it could not. The only way that that's going to happen is if you're rushing it. So be mindful of anything that you need to be healing in regards to relationship insecurities. Take your time, give it a couple of months, see how it goes. But I think that this is all in preparation before you're getting to next year when you're going to see Saturn and Neptune go into your relationship house, where stuff's going to get real, girl. It's going to get very real, especially for your chart, because you're going to see Saturn and Neptune moving in your 6th house of routine, and you're going to see Pluto in your 4th house, which is going to be more revolving around home. And so when work stuff changes or home stuff changes or family stuff changes, you're going to want to know that you have some kind of stability and support system that's coming from a partner. So we don't want to push things along. Take time to really get to know each other, because I think there's actually some potential here if you guys pace yourselves. Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, we've got Susan, and then we've got Julie. What's up, Susan? How you doing? She says, Natalia. Okay. Scorpio rising, Scorpio sun. You're welcome. Pisces moon. Been out of work since 2018. Started looking 3 months ago and seeing legitimately nothing I want. I'm not in a rush, but I'm wondering what you see. All right. Well, if you're a Scorpio rising, the focus is on doing more work that you enjoy right now, right? Because Saturn and Neptune's in your 5th. It will not be until January that you're going to see Saturn and Neptune start going into your work zone, where it's then there is going to be more of a, okay, I need to start something new. And pretty much February through April is going to be the hot zone, when Saturn's in your work zone, Mars is in your work zone, all going through your 6th house. So if you've been looking for 3 months and you haven't seen anything that you're interested in and you're not in a rush, let's see what insight the cards can give you. I'll tell you, Scorpio rising, you're going to have a good year next year because you guys are going to have Jupiter go into your 10th house of career. You're going to have eclipses in your 10th house of career. You're going to have trines between Jupiter and Saturn in your 6th and your 10th house. So it's going to be a powerful year for Scorpios. Lots of exciting new changes work-wise. Well, let's see what the cards say. All right, finally some new cards. We've got the King of Cups. We have got the Two of Swords and the Magician. What kind of work are you in? I almost kind of feel like in many ways, this could mean that you're really thinking out of the box in regards to the type of work that you're willing to go into. And I think the King of Cups can be talking about opportunities that can come through a meeting that you have with a man, or assisting a man in a business, or being in a man's world, or a position that men would typically work in. I'd be keeping an eye out for water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. This can also mean that there's a possibility that you're going to be really embodying the energy of the King of Cups, where your gut and your intuition is going to tell you, is this a good match for me or not? And if you're not seeing anything, you're not going to waste your time, because obviously having all that Scorpio in your chart, I mean, Scorpio rising, Scorpio sun, Pisces moon, you need to do something that feels emotionally like it's fulfilling and that it resonates with you. And also, the other thing that I think about is the Two of Swords is something possibly telling you right now, nope, don't take something if it's not going to be a fit. If your gut's telling you something's off, or this is not a good idea, or no, that's not really the direction I want to go in, you have to listen to that. The likelihood is that the Magician card coming up is really about playing more of an active role in what you're manifesting. So you can be going and looking for jobs and seeing what's out there and trying to apply to things, but it's also about becoming the master of your own reality, and where your emotions are helping kind of guide you, so that way you're not feeling like you're constantly going through a sea of employment applications. Instead, it's about you going, okay, I haven't seen what I want. I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to manifest what I do want. This is the kind of pay that I want. This is the kind of environment that I want. This is the kind of occupation, or kind of position, or what field I want to be in. This is what I'm imagining the office feels like, or the schedule feels like, or this is the types of doors that are opening for me. It's very emotional for you. And sometimes when you have a lot of Scorpio energy, I know what it's like. I've got 4 planets there. You can become so fixated on what you're afraid of, or what's not happening, or what's getting blocked, or what's not changing, that we can become really rigid in our thought patterns. So you have a Mercury retrograde in your sign, and you're learning about your own intuition, but also your own power, because Mercury represents your 8th house of transformation and also resources. And maybe it's about you going, okay, you know what? It's about going, the universe is providing for me, doors are opening, everything's working out for me. I'm getting callbacks, I'm finding the perfect position. And it's more about how you're talking to yourself, as weird as it sounds, because the Magician card is what you're manifesting and bringing into reality. So rather than getting caught up in what you're not seeing and what's not working, which I hear you, it's not. I mean, I can see that. The more that you're paying attention to your emotions and what you're manifesting, that's going to play a role in an actual change. I would say probably within about 2 to 4 months, you're going to see a change. For sure, knowing your astrology, you're going to be working when Saturn and Mars go into your 6th house next year, February, March, and April. You may feel like by then you have to work, or there is a need for you to be in work. But I think a lot of this is shifting around what you are actually envisioning, being like, okay, this is what's coming. I'm ready. This is what it looks like. Send it my way, and be specific. Right? I love the Scorpio rising horoscopes right now. I think with Saturn and Neptune in your 5th house, you could do creative work. It could be artistic. It could be something, that's creative, or something that's going to be independent, or something more fluid, something you love. Enjoy this time. Have fun. Because I remember when Saturn was going through my 5th house, and I was doing projects that, were creative, but they kind of felt monotonous. Well, it ended up being this channel. When Saturn went through my 5th house, that's when I was like, I'm going to get back on YouTube, because I wanted to do it. I never anticipated that I would still be doing this, but here we are. And then you will learn, as Saturn goes into your 6th house next year, that everything is like a labor of love. So you may get into something you really enjoy, and then you're like, oh my gosh, this is very physically demanding, or I'm having to really dedicate myself to this, and it's going to be like a lot. But I think it can be good for you, and be focused on maybe creating a vision board. Maybe it's about you imagining with the retrograde, everything's vibrationally being kind of pulled to you, and that people are interested in connecting with you, and listen to what your gut is telling you. Because I feel like it's going to be maybe something, I don't know what you do, but the King of Cups could be something where you're providing some kind of one-on-one client relationship or a service or something hospitality related or something where you're having to work with healing or emotions or something connected to like building relationships. Like it's not just going to be this boring transactional 9-to-5 job. It's something that you have to feel emotionally excited about, Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, we got Julie. What's up, Julie? You were the last woman standing. Julie says, what would be the outcome if I went public with my belly dancing? I've been feeling very subconscious pressure from my dance teacher to post or eventually perform. Thanks. I'm a Cancer rising, Aquarius sun, Virgo moon. That's the Virgo moon talking. Okay, my dad will tell you this, but growing up, he's in the chat. Growing up, we used to go to this Greek restaurant all the time where I grew up in Tucson. I'm from Arizona. And they would always have belly dancers there. And I remember being like little and being like, that is so cool. Like, that's what I want to do when I get older. Which then somehow spiraled into me wanting to be like Jasmine for Halloween for 3 years or something. But I think that's really cool. I think it's your Virgo moon that's making you a little self-conscious. And I love that as a Cancer rising, that retrograde's going from your 6th house into your 5th, where you're very critical maybe of your routine or your moves or like whatever, and there is a sense of maybe even being critical of, am I ready? Am I going to have the right kind of stage performance, whatever. But that Mercury retrograde is trying to get you to conquer your fears because it rules your 12th house and it's going into your 5th of Scorpio about being on stage and like being sexy. I really like the idea of you being open to it, but obviously you got to do what you got to do. So what would be the outcome if Julie went public with her belly dancing? Let's take a look. Well, you're certainly going to have a lot of admirers, that's for sure. 8 of Wands, the Empress card, and the Knight of Cups. I think you'd have a hard time making some patrons or people realize or recognize this is a job, right? People might be kind of interested in you romantically. 8 of Wands is about creative flow. And obviously this is a card that's about vitality and it's about movement, it's about excitement, and it's about getting things out there and out of the body. And so I like the idea, just with the Mercury retrograde, of you getting out of a monotonous kind of dance routine or just being in one location or being in front of a mirror or doing it in a class and really bringing it to something that's going to be more like a stage, right? That's going to be your 5th house where you're going to see the retrograde. I also think that the 8 of Wands is saying that it's going to kind of bring up this necessary sense of confidence. You can only get so much confidence when you're in a class, you're dancing in front of a mirror. You're going to get feedback from your teacher, you're going to get feedback from peers, great. But I think the 8 of Wands is that rush and that excitement and the change of surroundings and being in a place where you can be anybody other than yourself. You can be a character. And you can have the opportunity to be able to express that energy and have an outlet, and it can be actually really great for you, physically but financially. 8s are really about money. The Empress card, that goes without being said. That's about people looking at you in awe and kind of going, wow, that's amazing, and seeing you as like a goddess, and also getting a lot of appreciation and respect also potentially from other dancers if there's other people there, or maybe other women who might find you really beautiful and not offended. That's what I like about belly dancing. Not that there's anything wrong with strippers, but I think that what's really cool is culturally it's very rich in a lot of different cultures. It's considered to be something that is a form, obviously, of dancing and entertainment, but it takes a lot of movement and the ability to really control your body to do that. And so I'll never look at a belly dancer and be like, oh, that's trashy. I would look at it and be like, that's amazing, because I know how difficult it is to do that. So with the Empress card coming up, I think you're going to get compliments from women. You're going to get positive feedback from your teacher. You're going to have people that are going to look at you and go, oh my God, she's so amazing. And then also the Knight of Cups is talking about new relationships that are going to be built from that. And so yes, I think it's going to be interested suitors or men or people who are going to be kind of Googling at you a little bit. But the Knight of Cups can be also talking about this emotional renewal and excitement, because you have people inviting you to things, or there's opportunities for you to travel and do this or collaborate with other people. that's also going to give you that much necessary kind of boost in confidence, especially emotionally, because I think you might meet other people who are doing that actively in that industry where they're dancing and performing. It can also lead to you, having some romantic kind of connections. I mean, obviously the Knight of Cups can be a water sign, so it can be a Pisces, a Cancer, or a Scorpio. And this can be talking about people getting really interested in what you're doing and being like, well, when are you going to be here again? Or like, when are you coming through? So what ends up being just a regular gig might manifest as people being like, when is the belly dancer coming back? Or like, are you going to have her here regularly? Or, like, how can I get your information? Do you perform in other places? I say do it. Why not? If you're young and you can do it, I mean, you'll probably look back at some point and go, look at these photos of me doing this and I put myself out there, and you'll be really glad that you did it. And it'll probably be a moment that you're going to be really proud of, even if it's just a one-off thing. Although you're going to get invitations, or there's going to be interest for you to do this more often. But if you need that confidence boost, I would say now is a good time to be getting on stage and putting yourself out there. And I think you'd be surprised who would be interested in your dancing and what you have to offer. I vote yes on the belly dancing always. That's a cool question. I've never gotten to read for belly dancers, but hey, you know what? It is what it is. Well, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this Friday night's questions. I always like hanging out with you guys. That was the end of my readings. I will be back here for you obviously on Sunday. We're going to do astro weather. We're going to talk about Jupiter retrograde. But next week is going to be the Scorpio new moon, and it is like pow pow. So if you guys haven't seen that video, go and check it out. I will be back here then. Please don't forget to subscribe. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Go to beyondtheveiledtarot.com. Sign up for my newsletter, because I'm going to be selling my tarot deck this week. So I don't know if I'm going to put it out on Sunday. My birthday's on Tuesday. I'm trying to figure out the best day astrologically. So, and the Mercury retrograde's coming, but it's probably going to be out the next week. They're already ready to go. Sword in the Rose Tarot. And we're going to print 100 of them. So if you guys want to get the deck that I designed, make sure you sign up for my newsletter. I'll shoot you an email, let you guys know when it's available. When they're gone, they're gone. So hopefully you can get one. And if you want to know more about me and my work, book a reading, or if you want to learn tarot or astrology, check out beyondtheveiledtarot.com. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Friday night and the rest of your weekend. I will catch you all back here on Sunday. So until then, enjoy, and I'll see you guys all very soon. Take care.